good to go.
Oh, you know what? Let's let him get settled.
Well, should be opening.
Okay. All right. It is. Okay, let's get going. It's 7:01. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the GBOS regular meeting, September 18th, 2023. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees, subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25-public meetings. The GBOS operates under the Girdwood Meeting Standards of Conduct. My name is Jennifer Wingard. I am co-chair and land use supervisor.
I'm Brianna Sullivan, co-chair and fire department supervisor.
Mike Edgington, housing and economic development supervisor.
And
Amanda Sassy, public safety and road supervisor.
Guy is excused. He is traveling. We have does anyone have any disclosures this evening? Let's start with the agenda and whether or not we could move to approve.
I move to approve September 18th regular meeting agenda.
Second,
Do we have any discussion about it or changes?
I've got a suggested change. I think item number 13, resolution to support. My understanding is the previous resolution we passed in 2020 has served its purpose. So wondering if we can drop that from our crowded agenda tonight. And maybe bring back the idea of a letter in the future.
Okay, I can't remember if Crystal wanted to speak on this briefly or not. I know she did. See, why don't I wonder if we could wait on that and just see if she shows up.
Yep.
Okay. She's not online right now.
She is here now if you wanted to ask her.
Oh, Crystal, were you going to speak to under old business item number 13, the resolution of support? Would you like to speak to that, or are you okay with us striking it off the agenda?
I can speak to it, but I see there is a very full agenda, and the grant was submitted last Friday, so it's already been submitted, and it won't be decided upon by Rasmussen until December 15th. So it doesn't need to be addressed tonight.
You're sure? Because I don't want to sideline it.
I mean, I think a letter of support from GBOS specifically to Rasmussen would be helpful, but again, the decision is until December, so it's up to you guys.
I'm happy to bring back an item next month with the letter of support.
Okay.
And then Chief Weston has her hand up.
Chief Weston.
I was just going to suggest that item number 15 could also be postponed if those GBOS members that wrote the resolution are okay with that, just in light of the full agenda.
That would be you, Mike, right?
Yeah. Could we deal with this separately? Response to that. That's separate to the.
Okay. Okay.
Proposed.
Okay. Where are we at on 13?
So just for order, there's a motion to have that removed from the agenda.
Right.
And then was that seconded by somebody?
I'll second the removal
Okay.
of 13 for September.
Good.
Okay, do we have any discussion about that? And then can we just do that by consensus? Are there any objections to removing that number 13? All right, so I'm going to go with consensus on that. That change has been made. Now we'll move on to 15.
15, I would suggest we keep because there's a timing issue here, but it needs to go through. And my understanding is it needs to go up to the assembly. The assembly need to do something. And then even if they pass it, they would then need to bring something onto the ballot. So there's this kind of schedule, so many months between each step. So I think the sooner we do this, the better.
Okay.
I agree with Mike on 15, and thank you for Chief Weston's comment, but last meeting we had pretty thorough discussion with the volunteer firefighters here, and the resolution is ready.
Okay, all right. So that was not a motion. We can move on to approving the agenda if there is no further discussion or changes. Okay, and are there any objections to approving the agenda? Then let's consensus approve that. We need a motion to approve the budget work session minutes.
Move to approve the session. Is that just 3 or 3 and 2?
We could combine it.
Okay, I move to approve both the budget work session minutes.
I'll second. There's a tiny edit on budget 3, but it was really, really tiny. So I move to approve both those. It's just AM, PM when it was adjourned. It'd say AM.
Scrivener's error.
We won't call that.
Scrivener's error.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Perhaps seems like it.
Okay. Any further discussion about that? Or any objections to approving them? Okay. Consensus approval. And we need a motion to approve the August 21st meeting minutes.
Move to approve minutes from August 21st.
Second.
You guys are excellent. Any discussion? Okay. And any objections, or we will consensus approve that. Okay, done. The July 24th HBO as quarterly meeting minutes.
Move to approve July 24th
Thank you.
minutes.
Thank you. Oh, you guys, perfect. Okay, any discussion or changes? Okay, any objections to approving them as is? All right, we're going to consensus approve those. Excellent, done. Announcements. The public is encouraged to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. To help discussion stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public and keep your comments focused on the business under discussion. Please be respectful of everyone's opinions. All right, we have another announcement that the Girdwood Trail Committee intends to apply for a recreational trails program grant to work on the Middle Iditarod National Historic Trail. Please see public notice on bulletin boards and posted on site, and full information is included in this meeting packet under item 21. Next announcement is the Girdwood Valley Service Area Nonprofit Grant Presentation Meeting is Monday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. The MOAS Quarterly Meeting is Monday, October 23rd at 4 p.m. Moving on, we have a resolution of gratitude. Would you like to present?
I would. This is Brianna, and I don't see Linda Mankoff in the room, but if she's online, we have a resolution to read for her and her service in Girdwood. So I will begin by reading it into the record. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors has a resolution of recognition for Linda Mankoff. Whereas Linda Mankoff has worked at the Girdwood Health Clinic for the past 8 years in a variety of roles, including as front desk reception, certified application counselor, community health worker, and patient advocate, currently holding a position as patient assistant program coordinator. And whereas Linda is instrumental in supporting struggling families, victims of domestic abuse, at-risk seniors, and reaching out to the homeless in our community, advocating for those who have difficulty advocating for themselves. And whereas Linda has been especially effective at bringing local partners to our community to assist with housing, food, insurance, education, and health education. And whereas Linda collaborates with other organizations to make sure those most vulnerable are able to access the assistance they need, including the food bank, Girdwood Food Pantry, bringing Meals on Wheels, working with STAR, Providence Mobile Mammogram, AARP, and the Division of Public Assistance, and many others. And whereas Linda was recognized in 2022 by the Alaska Primary Care Association for her contributions to public health and is often called upon as an expert to provide insight into the challenges and successes of providing patient assistance in rural Alaska. And whereas Linda truly understands that addressing social determinants of health and other challenges leads to better health and wellness, demonstrating that belief every day. And whereas Girdwood is a better community through Linda's direct work and the support network and relationships she has established here. Therefore, Girdwood Board of Supervisors recognizes Linda Mankoff for her inspiring commitment to helping others and for her tireless advocacy for the more vulnerable members of the Girdwood community. Passed and approved on this 18th day of September 2023.
Thank you.
Any
Do we have any discussion about this further? Beyond just repeated thank you.
And Linda has a plaque here with this resolution framed for her to come pick up at her convenience.
Amanda's got her hand up.
Amanda.
Thanks. I just wanted to point out when the reading contribute, I don't remember what numbers, the third from the bottom, contributions to public health is what I think you read and probably meant, and it says population health. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
I'd just like to add my thanks as well. I've had many discussions with her, especially in the last year or two, about the issues facing the community, which I think are perhaps not as visible to many of us as they are to her. And I really appreciate her insights and her help and guidance to understand what's actually going on here.
Thank you. Do we have anything else on this item? All right. Earnest thank you to Linda. And moving on to the next, we have a presentation of.
Before you go on, should we just go to a quick vote on that resolution?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes, thank you.
That resolution passes 4-0.
Sorry. Thank you for holding me to task there. Now, electric vehicle charging station proposal.
Yes. We, at last month's meeting, let me get over to it here. We had a presentation, at last week's land use meeting, we had a presentation of land use on a potential project for putting a electrical vehicle charging station in. Tesla is interested in expanding their supercharger network. Currently, they have 2 here in Alaska, one in Soldotna and the other one in Chugiak. And they're looking for somewhere in between Anchorage and the Kenai Peninsula. And Girdwood serves as a prime spot for them. They are interested in doing 8 stalls. One would be a pull-through stall for future trucks and campers that they see growing, that market growing in Alaska. And it's a partnership with Chugash Electric to bring a charger station into here. We are working with HLB to explore this project. And so tonight we're here just to present the concept to the public like we did last week at land use. And then that way it gives a chance for the community to digest this project. The location would be the park and ride there on Girdwood Place and Holmgren. And then they would use 8 stalls in the middle of the island and then remove a portion of landscaping over there for the pull-through stall to work there. And then to bring power, they would have to bring power through boring. And I'll show it here from just over by the clinic where the 3-phase is. They would bore that through and then over to a transformer that would be placed there on the corner next to Girdwood Place. And then that could feed the superchargers there in that aspect. Like I said, HLB is the owner of this land. We have a 1-year permit, renewable permit each year that helps us maintain and take care of the park and ride there with snow removal and street maintenance activities. But this would be a separate lease agreement, license agreement, as they call it, for putting these superchargers in. They have not done superchargers on public land here in Alaska. They've done it all on private property. I'll show you like what they look like. So this is up in Chugiak at the Shell station up there. You can see they're right there in the parking lot. And there's a shot here in the summer as well. And so that's what they would look like in that aspect. Zach Whitney from Tesla did present last month at land use. He's unable to make it tonight. But he did deliver information that these chargers would work with all EV vehicles, and that they would have some sort of adapter or plug that would allow for people to plug in all the different makes and brands out there into it. Just wouldn't be exclusively Tesla in that aspect. And so what they are looking for with HLB is a no-fee lease of the property or license agreement, and then they would put all the money forward for the investment to put these in, and then recoup that investment through charging people for charging at these stations. So at this point in time, we don't know if this is fully a feasible project, but we wanted to get out and let the public know so that we can get the input from the public. HLB is very interested to know if the public is interested in this charging stations being placed here, as they would have to put it into their workload. And right now, their number one focus is the industrial park, and they want to keep working away on that. But this would require some time to research this and put this in. So that's a quick snapshot presentation of what a possible EV station looks like, and Tesla's interest in putting one here in Girdwood. So I'll open up for questions.
Thank you for that. This was nicely discussed. I thought we had a great beginning conversation about this at land use. And I also think land use is a really ideal environment for discussing these kind of ideas. But I'm happy to address anything now if anyone has any questions or comments they want to make.
I think my main question was about whether it was going to be available to all EVs. And although I don't think Zach explained how it would be, he said it would. So that's the most important thing, because otherwise you're effectively providing a public land for use by a private entity for their own marketing, really. But if it's across all EVs, then it's definitely a public facility.
And like I said, at this point in time, we're not seeking action or action to support anything. I think HLB needs to figure out more details about, there's some code restrictions probably they're going to affect putting this here, and then their own operating guidelines for HLB. So they are going through that. So once we know that this project does have a feasible pathway to make it through the municipal process, and we were very clear with Tesla that when working with public land, it just gets 2 times harder than working with private, just because of the codes and regulations associated with public land. We would come back to the board and to the land use committee to seek some sort of action from them. So, and we don't see that happening at least by next month. It'll probably be 2 months at least before we come back with anything.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Is there anything else on this?
I would just say thank you for the presentation from last week's. I heard that at land use as well and asked about snow plowing and lighting, things like that. And people asked questions about parking situations, and it was covered pretty well. I don't think it needs reviewed again, but if anyone has any thoughts on that, that's fine.
I think there are still some outstanding questions, like about how the electrical line will be running, et cetera, but it's early days. So it's nice to see, it's nice to see creative ideas about other things that could be done with that piece of land. So, okay.
Question.
Good. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Just curious if it'll come back on as, do you anticipate it coming back on as new business, or is this going to be served as the first announcement to the community?
We'll sign it as new business when it comes back, because we'll know what action they want at that point in time.
Right. So we didn't have an action item on it, but that's a good question. Thanks. Anything else? Great. If there's nothing else on this, I'd like to move forward to legislative reports. And I believe we have a representative here for Kathy Giesel. Are you here connected to that?
I am here for her, however.
Kathy is online.
Oh, Kathy's online. I'm sorry, Kathy, we can't see the screens. We can't tell who's online right now.
Sure, I understand, Madam Chairman. Yeah, this is Kathy Giesel. So I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I don't have a lot to report, but I listened with interest to the EV charging station. The big challenge that we're facing is the diminishing supply of natural gas out of Cook Inlet. It is something that I'm tracking closely and working with the utility CEOs from the 4 rail belt utilities. They have submitted a couple reports on solutions that they see. And I think most of you have heard that they view the least expensive and most expeditious solution to being short-term import of natural gas from British Columbia. So that is a developing situation. Of course, NSTAR is part of that as well. So really, that's about it. I don't want to take up a lot of time from your meeting, but happy to take any questions if I can answer them.
Thank you so much for being online. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you properly right away. Do we have any questions for the senator? No, don't think so. Thank you so much for being here and for staying on top of everything going on in Girdwood.
Thanks. I really appreciate what you guys are doing and the very active, engaged community. Thanks.
Okay, do we have Laddie Shaw or any representative for Laddie Shaw?
I don't see anybody.
So moving on, and again, I'm sorry, since I don't know, I'll have to ask, what about from our assembly? Do we have Ray Schultz?
Not at this time, but I'll keep an eye out for them. Sometimes they are in competing meetings.
Okay, all right. And then moving on then to school board. Do we have?
Yes, I think Margot's there.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Margot. You are on. Margot, are you there?
I see her, but your mic is off. So if you're trying to talk to us, you might be muted.
Okay, I'm going to briefly move down, and then if she unmutes or if you see any side of it, thank you.
Could I interrupt for one moment?
Yes.
For the ASD report on the online version of the packet, Margot submitted an update report with lots of links. So if anyone would like to refer to that in case she chimes in later or not at all, that's in the online.
I think I figured it out. Can you
Oh,
hear me?
there we go.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your patience. I kind of had my headsets on and I didn't realize I needed to switch out. Anyway, I'm going to try to turn on my camera. Thank you guys for having making time for me to give a quick report. I did send Brianna a written, which I will do every month, but my goal is to be here with you at least for a short time every month. I do have 2 council meetings on Mondays. I think it's the second Mondays. And so I will try my best to toggle between both of them, which is why I will do a written just in case I'm not here. Our next meeting, so I will be your representative for this school year from September to September to June. If I'm unable to come, the backup, if you can't get me, would be for you to contact Andy Holloman, board member Andy Holloman. Our next meeting is actually tomorrow night. We will have a series of 3 meetings. We will start with our work session at 4, move into our executive session. That is not live streamed, but the work session is live streamed. So is the regular meeting. And the regular meeting starts at 6 o'clock. We encourage people to sign up online if you wish to give public comment on any topic, or if you would like to give testimony on any action item. The process is in that link. We have a link to the sign up process in the report that you should have or have access to. If you have nothing to say, we invite you to listen to our meetings and then let us hear from you after you've listened to our meetings. If you hear something that you are concerned with or you require more information or resource around. We are into our first month of school, which means we have had a total of 4 PLC Mondays. Today was a PLC Monday. We were really intentional. We understood the impact to families, and we gave parents the opportunity to drop their kids off at the regular time if they needed to drop them at the regular school time. The superintendent has provided resources from the Ed Center to the schools for those schools that need it. Every school does not have campfire. Every school does not have Girls and Boys Club in the mornings, but we do have, each school will have a plan if families need to drop their kids off on Mondays at the regular time. We are working on our 2024, but our 2025, 24-25 budget. If you guys listened to our assembly meeting on Friday, if anybody did, you know that we had a joint assembly meeting on Friday. We talked about all of those items of mutual concern, which included the budget and the expected deficit, which is, it's early, but we are expecting a $95 million deficit, of which we are starting to develop plans around. So it's a little soon, but in a couple of months, we will be back to, I will bring back to you some really interesting data points when it comes to building a balanced budget with that kind of deficit. We do have some reserves, and we do have, which is like a savings, and we do have some, a few funds left over from COVID that we will be applying toward that. Other topics that might be of interest are also in the handout, and they include our ELA, a new curriculum, reading curriculum based on the Alaska Reads Act. We are one of the districts that is participating in the state's program, and we have selected a new curriculum. We are getting questions about the 6th grade to middle school transition. We will be updating the website because that transition won't take place until next year, but it will take at least 2 years to finalize. So it's a phased in process, and we will give you more information as those recommendations come to us from the superintendent. And if you have questions, I'll put my contact information is on the written report, but I will also put it in the chat if I can figure that part out. You have access to me 24/7. I will respond. If I don't have the answer, I will get the answer for you. And so with that, I think I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board? Okay. No, apparently not.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. If you have questions, I'm just a text or a phone or email away. I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. I know you're super busy, and I did want to say on a personal note, I was just driving down to Girdwood today, listening to your interview with the East Anchorage Book Club, and it was phenomenal. So Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was very reflective. Andrew does such a good job. He just brings stuff out of people, right? Thank you.
It was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on then, I believe we're done with item number 3. We're going to move on to supervisor reports. Housing and homeless statement.
That's next, I think.
Oh, sorry. Right. Supervisor reports. Sorry. Sleep. Let me start with, can I start with housing? Mike, would you feel?
Yeah, sure.
All right, jump in then.
So, well, we're about to talk about the potential position statement from District 6, but before that, I'm not sure if this falls under housing or land use, but there has been, people who pay attention read the ADN, there's been this proposal that came from the Assembly a couple of months ago to change zoning into a limited number of zoning residential housing. They've adjusted it in a number of ways, and the discussion they're having now is only for Anchorage Bowl. It will not directly affect Girdwood, though the principal approaches they're taking are things we'll probably pay attention to. It might be discussed when it comes through the comprehensive plan update and any subsequent actions. The other thing that's, I think, relevant to economic development is the issue around marijuana tax and it's spending the money on childcare. The Assembly is putting together a kind of process and a proposal for how to manage that funding. That's a process that's going through. I can't remember if it's made it in the packet. It may not have made it in the packet, but there's a discussion which will continue this year about general framework, and then that'll get moved into particular policies and processes, and then eventually there'll be a mechanism and a way to spend the money, which will come out in 2025. So this is going to take about a year or so to put the framework together, and then the money will actually come through after a full year has been collected. So we as a community and various of our committees should be paying close attention to that, I think, over the next few months, and engage kind of as appropriate as this gets put together. I think that's mostly it, apart from the issue of that statement.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. For the fire board, I attended their Girdwood Board of Directors meeting on August 29th, where they went over the budget, and the rest we will discuss related in our agenda later. Also, I wanted to highlight in Guy's absence that it is library card sign-up month, and there's lots of happenings at the library. And this month is also Booch for Books. The kombucha company Zip Kombucha is doing a books tasting this Thursday in Anchorage. And if you bring your library card to their location all of September, you get 10% off. So they're helping cast light on the September library card sign up all over Anchorage libraries. So be sure to visit the library here. Lots going on.
All right. Thank you. Amanda, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you. I have some dates to keep in mind. We have the cyberbullying workshop that the Public Safety Advisory Committee is hosting on October 6th in the community room. We also have Kids and Cops, where kids can come and get ice cream from the ice cream shop. Thank you, ice cream shop, on October 14th. I don't have a time for that. Sorry. And I think that is, the tsunami mapping on October 17th in the community room. They're all evening events, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. And then just quickly from land use, we'll be discussing some of the things, but there are interesting conversations. If you don't make it to the very end of this meeting, beware that land use is had a great conversation about the potential for removing gravel to be used for building here in the Girdwood Valley rather than transporting it for miles. And then the other thing under discussion is the use of HLB parcel 6-134, possibly for RV camping. This is different than one of the proposals that came out years ago that some people may remember. This is specifically for transitory camping, not necessarily permanent. Anyway, those discussions are still ongoing, however. And so particularly if you're, I would really encourage you, if you have things to say about it, to get involved with either the Housing Committee or land use on that. And then lastly, land use has a position open. The seat as co-chair is now available. That assignment ends in December, and that because the new executive committee gets seated in January. But if you are all interested, please contact Kevin McDermott, Kyle Kelly, or Margaret Tyler. Sorry. I think that is it. Now we can move on. Housing homelessness statement. District strict. Would you like to?
Yeah, it's up on the screen, so I'll talk to this briefly. So this is an initiative that has been worked on by a group of community councils within District 6. We haven't, apart from email, I don't think we haven't been directly involved in this, and I haven't been able to attend the meeting. And there's Brianna, who's also been.
No, I went to their first one where they were trying to start from somewhere. And then after that was just email from this group. Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. Thank you for the clarification. I do remember the first So I think this is, this is very much coming from South Anchorage community councils talking to each other. And I don't think they've either reflected or in fact this reflects the reality in the rest of Turnagain at all in a number of ways. So I think the concern, one of the concerns that's been sort of going around is that community councils could support things in other community councils or in fact propose things right on the border which would affect another community council without the agreement of that community council. That's not really relevant here. We don't have another community right against our border, or at least we have another community council, but we don't have anyone living there. So the concerns, for example, about being within 1.5 miles of the border are not really relevant to us. We don't have anyone living within 1.5 miles of Girdwood Community Council border at all, actually. So this is something we as a body can sign into, engage, agree with, disagree with, or we can kind of ignore it. There's nothing binding in this unless we choose to make it binding. I would say my primary criticism is really this is about South Anchorage, not about Turnagain communities, and they should probably reflect that in the topic itself, rather than describe it as a District 6 event. But we as a body can decide to engage if we wish. So we can bring it on for a later discussion, or just be aware of it as something which is happening, which we're not directly engaged in and therefore won't be bound by.
Thank you, Mike.
Do you have anything to ask?
Yes, I'll add on just that this was sent right before their meeting that was August 20. They wrote this August 23rd, and then they were going to discuss it August 30th. And in my emails with one of the leaders of this, Joan, in the community council, hasn't answered when I asked if we make a position statement, when should it be submitted by. But the ask of all the community councils in District 6, which we are one, ex officio as a board, to write an individual position statement. So I am open to being tasked with maybe one other person to write a very brief statement, because it only has 4 objectives, very brief, instead of disagreeing with this one because we're so unique, and that would be like more effort to say why we disagree with it. And so here's B, I through 4, 1 through 4 is what we're just supposed to state to participate in this for the assembly's sake, really is what they're doing this for. So we could, like Mike already said, do this to participate or just do nothing. And I did go to the first meeting and was trying to honor the request of Felix Rivera to involve all the community councils with the task. So I'm okay with doing something rather than not participating.
Just to add one other thing, we can also make we can follow our own requirements and provide our own position statement as well by responding to the assembly directly rather than via this group.
Okay.
We have a number of options here.
Okay. I'm open to what the board thinks, and since I don't know how the due date, it's probably already passed, which is why I wanted to have it here as an update. If it could be considered an action item.
Okay, to clarify, you haven't heard back, but you think that the deadline's already passed on this. Okay, but I also note that the Assembly's got this housing retreat / forum, something coming up at the end of October and into November, right? And so I think anything related to housing and homelessness is timely and is going to continue to be timely for a while. So leaving that, then we have the question of whether or not it's appropriate to treat this as an action item now. And then the other thing is kind of the feeling of the board. I also think that I'd like to see us at least be supportive in some way or another, because we have relied on the support of these other community councils at other times. And I think that there's interesting networking happening, even if it's not directly applicable to us. We see the value to them and support our neighbors. basically. So, so any other thoughts about this? Let's start with this. Any thoughts about this as an action item?
I think we'd have to amend the agenda to add this as an action item in old business since it has been discussed before and it's sensitive of time. Instead of waiting for a special meeting or for another 4 weeks. That's what I think for now, before we act.
So you think that there would be a benefit to acting tonight rather than putting this on business for the next week?
I do, correct. And it's only 2 paragraphs. It's all pretty brief they're asking for. I hope it wouldn't take much longer of discussion or much longer in tonight's agenda. But I'm open to whatever for fellow board members were going to say. And a different idea. You could also respond independently, but they're asking our community council.
Yes, they are. Okay. Well, I would be open to a motion then to add it under old business for tonight. Is that how we would do it?
I was going to propose we add it to new business and then follow up at a later date, because I think we all need to consider exactly what this is saying, think about it and not act tonight.
Okay. So you
I propose putting it on as throwing it to the item 27.5 in new business.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Do we have any further discussion about that?
My further discussion comment would be that I agree we should all have a few weeks to weigh in if we haven't thought about this yet.
Okay.
So that would be worth it for a comment to the assembly and the group.
Okay, other than that, we have a motion on the table. Do we have any objections to this? To adding it to where specifically the motion is adding it to new business 27A. So do we have any objections to that? Because I'll just consensus approve then. All right. So moved. SCIP comments. Do you want to handle this one as well, Mike, or not?
I haven't been following this.
Okay. I haven't been following this super closely. This is the DOT plan. And I briefly looked into it. The way the plan is written, I didn't see anything that we needed to, I didn't personally see anything we needed to respond to separately that we haven't already, like we have already had a resolution about the interchange and the plan is about funding, but there's nothing definite. It's a funding plan. So that being said, we could put this on under new business next month, I think, because I think that deadline is still a ways out.
I believe so.
Yeah. Let's do that rather than winging anything right now. Unless anybody objects. Okay.
I'll make that as a formal motion then, just 27B, I guess.
Next month.
Next month.
Oh, next month is new business.
Next month is new business unless,
We wouldn't
well, we wouldn't.
follow the process. We would be able to act until November, and I believe the deadline is October. Is that correct?
I thought it was November, hang on. Quick check, sorry guys.
I'll second the new business addition if the deadline is October.
Public comment is already closed still,
Oh, it's already
I
closed.
believe, yes.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Maybe it was September the
We already talked about this a little bit. I would say this, let's move on. Unless,
motion.
okay, all right, moving on. committee updates. Do we have any committee updates beyond the supervisor reports that we already covered? For item 5? Because I would like to move on to 6 then. This is the status of proposed Girdwood developments. I saw it briefly at the screen before. Has anything changed here that we need to cover?
I am aware that there has been some that we are quite a way behind, or quite a way beyond the date we were told by DOT to perhaps expect a response to the airport lease question. I believe there has been a meeting between the developer and DOT leasing. I haven't heard anything more about that. I've definitely seen nothing formal from DOT yet.
Okay.
The other thing I mentioned is Horton Hills. As I think many people know, an item was put back by the Assembly into the HLB work plan for this year, which related to potential future development on Horton Hills. That I believe is any action is predicated on a consultant being appointed or being hired to work to make sure that there's someone paying attention to the municipality's concerns and benefits to the municipality. I have not seen an RFP for that position yet. I believe we probably will see an RFP either this month or next month. And then there will be some period of time before someone is appointed, and after that something will happen. But I don't know what the precise schedule is. Just when I've asked him for the next few weeks. It's a topic which I think will come up at the HLB meeting later this month.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else on that? Let's move on to service provider reports, starting with Chief Weston.
Hello there. For us, just a reminder that we are accepting community firefighter new member applications until September 30th. You can find information on that on our website, girdwoodfire.com. As we get more into fall, if you are turning on all those heat systems that you might have off during the summer, it's a good time. You should have a certified gas contractor check to make sure that they are okay. So, and I think we have had good success in Girdwood of having people sort of buddy up on having contractors come down and service their heating appliances. Other than that, we have been quite busy with a few car accidents and other things. We did have, if you were on Pulse Point, you would have noticed that we had 2 cardiac arrest calls in one day. As it turned out, both turned out not to be cardiac arrest calls. So we were very happy about that, but we are able with the Pulse Point app to reach out and see who was in a quarter-mile radius to who was signed up on Pulse Point, and then also how many AEDs we had within the vicinity. So that was quite interesting to look at those stats. And then just a reminder, on October 2nd, in the evening, we're going to have a emergency preparedness trivial pursuit night at the community center after the PSAC meeting. And we did have a CERT call out this last month where we had 3 CERT members respond and help me move apparatus that were left at different locations during a serious motorcycle accident. And that's it for me. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Chief Weston. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, we're in the room. All right, thank you. I think that's it. Moving on to police. Do we have?
Thank you.
I did talk with Chief O'Shea. He's unable to call in, but we did have a meeting earlier this month with the PSAC, the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And Whittier Police just making the reminder that it is fall, and there's always tends to be a little uptick in thefts and crimes in the fall, just with the shoulder season. So just a reminder, things get darker, to take care of your valuables, keep things locked. and just be aware. And then also keep an eye out around the neighborhood for things. It happens typically every year as people are in between seasons, and we see it. So it's a reminder with that. They are fully staffed. They were fairly busy over the weekend with quite a few different individual calls, some larger investigation calls. So even though it is shoulder season, they're staying active out there, and they're trying to increase patrols on many different request areas for speed control and things like that. And they're trying to fit it in as officers have availability in between service calls, runs to town, court time, things like that. So they're trying their best. That's all I have at this point.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? All right, do you want to move right into roads, parks?
Sure, I'll start with parks. We are buttoning up a bunch of projects as we head in the fall and starting to put things away. But we did have quite a few completion projects. One is that in partnership with DOT, Girdwood Station Crew, we created a new memorial bench for Rob Hamill down on the Bird to Gird. You'll see it as you start to go down the hill right behind the Forest Service there. So that bench has been put in place. The family purchased the bench, and then between a partnership with DOT, where Rob used to work, and the Girdwood Parks and Rec, we got that bench installed. So it will be there for a few more months, and then as we get close to winter, we take it out just because we don't want to get damaged with any plowing that may happen in that section of the bike path. Our crews, and along with Friends of Girdwood Trails, have been busy working on the middle of Iditarod. We rebuilt and installed some new bridges and boardwalk in the first section of the middle of Iditarod. And then we also netted those sections with fish net to help keep them from getting too slippery. And then as well, we did a bunch of drainage work on a work night with a bunch of volunteers and uncovered old corduroy and got the mud and slop out of there so that the drainage is better and hopefully not so wet. That will be a area of focus for us over the next year or two, just improving those sections, especially the western side of the middle Iditarod up by Ann's Meadow and those sections, just trying to improve the drainage so it's not so wet and the trail isn't widening through those sections. So we'll be working on that. As well, a new bridge boardwalk was built on Abe's Trail. We really appreciate our work crew this year, Luke and John. They've been doing great. They got another 10 days with us, and then they finished up their season. So really appreciate their time that they put in for us this summer. They've made a lot of great improvements to our parks and our trails. And as issues come up, just make sure to contact Margaret and I if trees are down, trail issues. As we head into fall and winter, we'll be handling those directly throughout the coming winter months. We are working through different projects, and we'll talk a little bit here tonight about the Winter Creek Bridge, which is coming up on an agenda item tonight. And then as well, we'll be reapplying for some Rasmussen, hopefully funding for that bridge, but we'll talk more about that as we get to that. Moving over to the trails map, we are working with our contractor to create a trails map for the 5K parking lot. That really help between the summer and winter usage out there. We had a great meeting last week, and we plan to bring a draft to our working committee from Trails Committee on that map. We hope to have something up this winter out in that location. And then with the trails plan, the blue candidate draft, which was passed by the community, is now going, and by HLBAC, is going to go in front of P&Z. We just got notice today on November 6th. And so we'll be seeking approval of P&Z that meeting that night. And we encourage the public to come out and testify for the plan. And it'll be an open public testifying session there at that meeting for that. And we'll be presenting it and working with Huddle to get that all done. So we submitted 26 copies of it just last week. So it's moving along. All the park amenities, we want to thank Jared and Kara and Jared, who oversaw the campground this summer as our park hosts. They are completing their time with us. And we do know that we have overflow of California Creek. It looks like California Creek has done some a new channel, and so it's affecting the beer garden for Forest Fair in the back of our campground. So we're going to examine that closer and see if that continues or if it just happens to be the high water of the fall that's causing that. So we'll watch that as that goes. And then we are working with Lions Club. We are applying for several grants, one being the RTP grant through the state, and then the Land, Water, and Conservation grant. We're working on drafting those right now. They're due at the end of October. And the Land, Water, and Conservation grant will be for Lions Club to build a new pavilion there. So we'll be bringing that forward next month for a letter of support from GBOS on that. And then the nonprofit grant cycle is in action. So our report really goes into detail about this, and I should show that up here. It's on, I think it's towards the back of our thing here, but if you want to see our report with all the details, you can see it here up there on the screen. So as always, Margaret does a great job with our social media and websites, keeping those up to speed. Road status, many large projects have been completed in July and August. We still have a few projects that we are going to try to complete before end of year, but our budget is getting pretty thin on larger projects. We're going to try to keep up today. We had the crew out doing road maintenance down on the Old Town and Mine roads, and they started on the airport side. They'll be back tomorrow to finish up Timberline and a few other areas, just trying to keep up and keep the roads smooth and the water going where it should be. And then into October, we may do a few projects, but for the most part, I think we're going to be just getting ready for winter. We'll be receiving all our winter sand here over the coming weeks, and with that stockpile set for the change of season. Major projects ahead of us is the Ruan Fish Passage. We were able to locate the 1.6 million for that. It ended up getting stuck with the EPA. And so we'll be applying for a grant through the EPA for that, along with several other AWU projects that are related to Girdwood. And so that they ended up over there, and they were being sent to a employee who no longer works for Girdwood or for municipality, and so we were able to locate that. That 1.6 million for that will require a 20% match. But once we get into it, we'll return to the board and let you guys know what will be needed for that project to put in that box culvert there at Ruan and avoid hopefully future flooding issues. As of overall, our operating expenses are right where they need to be for this time of year. We have several large things going on with like Engine 41, the new build for that, and transferring money and all that. But for the most part, we're right where we need to be at this time of year. So that's all listed out here in the report. So I'll open up for any questions anybody has or any input there from the report.
Thank you, Kyle. Very thorough. Could you just repeat, did you say it was that the trails plan is from the planning and zoning on November 6th?
November 6th, yep. At their November 6th meeting, that's a regular meeting.
And do we have any questions from the board? Or online for? Great, excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
That was great. All right, moving on to public comment. Persons offering public comment must state their full name and address. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and must be on subjects not listed on the agenda. Do we have any public comments in the room or online?
Nothing I'm seeing online.
Okay.
I actually, sorry, was slow to react. May I, please?
Yes.
Thank you. On October 11th, the Imagine Girdwood committee working to rewrite the Girdwood area plan is hosting a in-person meeting to review and make comment on various land use maps. This is going to be at the Girdwood Junior High and Elementary School at 6 p.m. and we'll have some refreshments and have some kids activities so everyone can participate. So please come and join us for that. Thank you.
And then one more, Soren.
Soren.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I'd say I don't think this is on the agenda, but I'm just wondering if the DOT is ever invited to board meetings, and maybe they should be. There's so much going on the highway, and so many of us commute back and forth, and we're just kind of curious. I saw the DOT out on Beluga Point with a public, or it's a contractor for them, to solicit comments on the safety improvements. And so I guess I'm just kind of wondering if DOT is invited to the GBOS meetings, if they, I think this has been brought up before, but I just wonder if that's still kind of continuing, if you're trying to get them involved, because it'd be really nice to have some updates from DOT. That's all I have to say.
I could answer that. We actually just put an invite out to DOT the last week, mostly because of the erosion, active erosion that's happening on Glacier Creek at the Alyeska Highway Bridge. And we didn't get a response that they would attend, but you see their item 16, discuss Glacier Creek erosion concerns. We'll discuss that tonight. One person that we used to invite quite a bit to meetings was Scott Thomas. And I just learned last week that he retired after 33 years. And he was a really great source of information, especially with 33 years of experience at DOT. And they are now in the flux of replacing him. And so there's, you know, somebody acting who's probably acting for something else now too. So they're pretty stretched thin trying to get people to get them to come to meetings. So we do try, but we haven't had a lot of success getting people here for different issues, topics.
Thank you, Tony. It's a good reminder. It occurs to me it's almost worth having a DOT right under legislative reports and everything else. What's DOT doing now? Because you're right, what they do affects us a great deal. Thank you, Soren. Was there anything else, sir? Okay. So do we have any other public comments? No. All right. I'm going to move along to old business. Item number 9. GBOS vote on Girdwood Valley Service Area 2024 budget.
So I'm going to take you through, I don't want to tie up too much time here. I'm going to take you quick through what our budgets are and what's been discussed. We did 3 work sessions with the Girdwood Board of Supervisors over the last 2 months to discuss the 2024 operating budgets for police, roads, fire, and parks and rec. And I just want to break down what we are tax district 4 and what that looks like for Girdwood. So in tax district 4, we pay 3 different types of taxes through our property taxes. And that would be area-wide, which in most years is actually a rebate because area-wide is mostly funded by other sources like fuel, alcohol, bed tax, rental car tax, tobacco tax, other revenue sources that fund that area. And then the Anchorage School District, which is probably the largest portion of our taxes, is about 61% of our property tax pays for the Anchorage School District. And then 39% pays for the Girdwood Service Area. And then under that, the Girdwood Service Area taxes fund street maintenance, fire, police, and parks and rec. And at one point in time, it did do a little cemetery, but we haven't done that for years there. So you can kind of get a sense of what the breakdown is. And this is this represents, say, a house of a value, assessed value by the municipality of $795,000. So let's say $800,000. And out of that, in that case for 2023, that house paid $1,358 in street maintenance tax, $1,606 in fire, $796 in police, and then $292 in parks for the year, for a total of $4,052. Now that is almost matched, if not more, than with police or with the Anchorage School District. So that's where a lot of times these tax bills could be close to $10,000. 5,000 of it may be just the Anchorage School District. So that's the largest portion there as to what it funds. So with that, you hear us talk a lot about mills. This gives you sort of description how we calculate mills. You know, it's based on the assessed area, the assessed value of the service area, and then plus the amount that is collected. And then that breaks it down and gives you the mill rating. So in that aspect. Right here, this 2024 is showing what we estimate for this year, and we'll go through and break that down. Last year, we had a mill rate of 5.35. Schools district was 7.17, and the area-wide was 0.04 for a total of 12.57. And then through here, you can read through this in more detail, but it just tells you what area-wide pays for, what Anchor School District pays for, and what the Girdwood service area taxes pay for. But what is real interesting for us is that we are the 5th lowest tax mill levy overall compared to all tax districts. And we are the lowest when you look at the similar government services for other middle. So we're the lowest, and we fund fire, police, parks, and road maintenance in that. And you can see here, this is sort of the mill levy breakdown. Let me slide this over so it's more centered. And you can see us here at tax district 4. And so the ones that are lower than us most likely don't have fire or police, probably not Parks and Rec, like for example, our neighbors up Crow Creek Road, they're really only paying for the Anchorage School District, and then I think a small little portion for police, for AFPD to respond to major emergencies, not full police service. So you'll find different things, all these different service areas have different breakdowns. But a comparison to us, downtown, which has similar services to us, they're paying 17 mil downtown. And so that's sort of the main core of the city. So pretty efficient for our services here and what we get. So, and then this gives us the tax breakdown history. So this is just a little history about our mill rate over the years and where we've been, talks about our averages and things like that. And you can see our area-wide average has actually been negative. So there's been a little bit of a rebate there. Like that in 22, we had a negative 0.14, but last year we paid just a 0.04. So paid a little bit of area-wide there. So it kind of goes up and down all the time there. And then this is our undesignated fund. So Girdwood has sort of a savings account where money falls into, but it also funds our bond rating designation and also a capital reserve, which is an emergency fund of $608,000. We tapped into this with the Halloween storm that helped us to make repairs. And then we were able to get reimbursement from the state since it was declared an emergency, a declaration. And so we have got those reimbursements given to us. And so we are back up to 390,000 of funds undesignated. So those funds aren't tied to anything. So that's basically sort of a capital savings there. It could be used for future. We've used this in the past to help fund improve the fire department, department expansion. And then we've used it for emergency responses over many different storms throughout the years. So that's just a quick overrun of the fund balance report there. So before I dive into the first budget, any questions with any of that before we jump into, well, before I go into capital projects? Okay, I'll keep moving. You can always interrupt me too if you got a question. And so these are the service area capital projects. What's highlighted in yellow is probably priority. And so the first area is Parks and Rec. One is the design of the Glacier Creek Bridge at Winter Creek Trail, and then the eventual build. Both of these right now do have funding designated to them. We have $525,000, which came from the CARES Act, and then we have $1.2 million that came from State of Alaska Capital Grant. And we are starting to hone in on what we think the expenses are going to be now that we've gotten to a 35% design. Right now, there's a professional estimating company that's looking at that design, and they hope to have a report to us in the coming weeks. So we'll have a good idea there. The Lions Club new pavilion, the engineer estimate on that, it ranges from 100 to 150,000 in that area. So that's a project for us in the future. And then there's a couple of things that we need for operations probably coming up. One would be a dump trailer, which would make it a lot easier for us on many projects to have a tow behind dump trailer that we could use. And we'll probably be coming to the board for requests for that in 23 or 24. And then a new grooming machine, which will probably be snow machine, which will probably be in 24, since it takes us over a year to get those. because they're so difficult to get on the market. So we'll probably put a request for 25 for that machine. So we'll ask for it in 24 and get it in 25, I should say. And then we have other projects that are in the wings, master planning for both Alyeska Playfield and the storage Connex area, the parking lot for Moose Meadows. And then we probably would combine that with master planning for Girdwood Park, aka Forest Fair Park. And then that would probably lead to future projects after that. So these are some of the projects that aren't priority at this point, but they're right there behind these. And then these are our road projects, which are road improvement infrastructure. And a big one right now in front of us is the bridge passages for Alyeska Creek at Davos and Mount Hood. We just completed the Lake Tahoe one. So we have one down, but we have 2 more to go. And they're the most expensive too, because of water line issues and then the box culverts themselves. And so this kind of just gives a breakdown of everything. And we're right now in the middle of a feasibility study for paving Timberline, Vale intersection to Loveland and down to Alpena. So we're working through those different things there. And then the California Creek, we hopefully will have that EPA grant to help us get the majority of that funding. We will probably have to come up with some serious area matching funds, but we should be able to make that work. And then fire, these are all in motion. Utility 41, Chief 41, Engine 41. The board has approved funding for all these, and they are currently right now in process. Chief 41 and Utility 41 are here. Now it's just a matter of getting all the parts to put the lights, the bells and whistles on, the lights, the canopies, all the stuff to make it a functional operating unit. And so they're working through that. It's just a bunch of hurdles to get over and make it work, but they hope to have that by early winter and operational. And then we have some things coming up in 24 that they're seeking approval for, which is PPEs, turnouts, hoses, gas monitors. And so they'll be seeking approval for those to purchase in 24. So that's kind of a run over. No real capital purchases at this time for the police department, but we are looking at possible improvements to the substation here to make their operations more efficient, which would probably be within the $15,000 range. We'll be bringing that to GBOS once we get it through the Public Safety Advisory Committee. So that's kind of a run over capital, that area. And then this here just gives you a breakdown of contributions that we've made to capital over the years, and also the debt that we paid, mostly related to fire, and then future debt that we'll be paying on the new Engine 41. So this kind of just gives you a breakdown of the different contributions we've made since 17 to the different departments and how we've kind of tried to step this up. One thing that Girdwood is not successful with is bonding. And so we've taken a proactive measure to save money, build up, pay for things, then start saving again, do the next project, because we are dependent on the Anchorage Bowl approving our bonds, and sometimes they get confused, even though it's very clearly written in the bond language that they don't pay for it. We just need their support because we're using the credit rating associated with the city. So to get us good rates on bonds. So anyways, it's a long topic to go through. So that's kind of a run over there. And then this is a breakdown of our capital counts and how much money we have in each account. And then the yellows kind of talk about our loan debt payments and the funds that we're building to pay off our debts for like Engine 41, which we just are in the process of purchasing, but we won't start paying on for probably 13 months until that engine is delivered. So we will deal with it at that point. So this kind of just goes through and breaks that all down, where our accounts are and all the different funding strings that we have associated for capital. So that was a lot of information. So if you have any questions about any of this, please you can ask now. If you want to talk to me later about it, you can as well. But we've taken the board through this for the last 3 meetings. So I think they have a good understanding of it, but if board members or the public have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them. If not, I think the first one is fire. So Chief Weston wants to step in. She can talk about fire.
I think that the board has had numerous presentations on this. So I'll just, if there's any questions, I'll just entertain the questions.
you have any questions? Okay.
I'll start, Jim. So I just wanted to, could you just go over briefly the major changes between last year and this year?
Major changes between last year and this year include the inclusion of a small amount of retirement contribution. Additionally, an increase in labor, 3% for staff. And in addition, we had boosted our staffing that's available 24/7 for the simple reason that AFD was decreasing the availability due to their own staffing needs of ambulances and station move-ups, which is just a reflection of utilization time on ambulances. So, which would mean that when all Girdwood resources are exhausted, that the next resource would be coming from Anchorage for that 911 call versus being able to do a station move-up. And so to mitigate the concerns we had with that new reality, which wasn't in place last year, we started the AED program to put more AEDs around the community, encourage pulse point, and then also boost our available staffing. So that's reflective in that. Other than that, everything is about the same. There was an increase in healthcare costs, but that is reflective of the fact that we needed to have more people available 24/7 on call in this, actually in the building.
So just to follow up, I've got two follow-up questions, Jim. One is, this is about a 12% increase over last year. So it's primarily staffing costs, insurance costs, and obviously the contribution to retirement, which is part of the retention issue you have with, or to make sure we keep the good staff we have. Was there any change to the on-call funding as well? Is there an increase there?
No, it's the same.
Okay, great. And then thanks. And then my last question is, this is the thorny question that we always come up with. So, assuming we don't get any surprises, the EMS funding from the municipality will be about 507,000 this year. And we're proposing, I think, to the fire department about 1.4 million. So plus IGCs and stuff, plus other transfers to the MOA for support services. But it's 1.4 million to the fire department directly, and only 500,000 for EMS. So my sense has always been that we pay, that in terms of the overall costs, probably more than half are EMS services. Yet we're paying this year 3/4 of the money going to Girdwood Fire is effectively the fire services rather than EMS services. And I know there's, the reality is we need both. So I understand why we're potentially paying for EMS from fire. But is that really the right way to think about it? Or is it more that the majority of the costs really are fire? It's just the majority of calls are EMS?
I would tell you that in all the fire service areas in the municipality of Anchorage, my understanding is that EMS is being subsidized by fire, which is a longstanding problem. My understanding is that the municipality is aware of, and at some point in time we'll need to address, but are not addressing it this year. As you know, and you're aware, we did ask for a contractual increase, and we were told for EMS services, and we were told that we will have to operate at 2022 numbers for EMS services.
That's the 507,000, not the much lower than we used to get, correct?
Correct.
Good. Well, that's better than it used to be, at least.
Yes, but it doesn't, I feel like we're going down
Yes.
the same path that we were before, when the municipality decided to say, operate at the same level of EMS for a decade. So I feel like we made some strides, but now we seem to be back in the same pattern again. So I just feel like it's difficult, I think, for all of the firefighters to see funding allocated. The municipality gets to choose how they allocate funds. And, from our perspective, we think that the emergency services for those members that are in Girdwood, or those community members and travelers that travel the Seward Highway and recreate in the southern part of the municipality, are equally as important as the rest of the municipality.
Thank you. I agree with you, and clearly we do have a problem in the way that EMS is funded. I hope we can work on that both as a board and individually over the next sort of several months, maybe the rest of this year into next. I don't know if we'll resolve it in the 24 budget, but I hope we do soon after. Thank you.
Anything else? Do we have any other questions or comments for Chief Weston? Great.
So I don't know if you want to make a motion as we go through each one of these budgets and approve them individually, and then or wait and come back, and how would you like to go through this? I think in the past we've made a motion to approve the operating budgets according to the amount.
But personally, I would prefer to do this at the end so we have a big picture.
I'm fine with that. I was just gonna ask how we usually do it because I didn't remember we did it.
I believe last year we did it at the end. So yeah.
Okay, do that.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. I'll move into street maintenance. And so for this year, we are asking for a slight increase, a cost of living increase according to labor contracts with the personnel services. So Margaret's a union employee. I'm an executive employee. Most likely executive employees will not see increase this year as to what we've heard from the mayor, but under the guidelines here with the union contract, we are showing a 3% increase. That will get honed in by OMB once things are determined, but this gives you an idea what the increase looks like. So that's about $5,000, just a little over $5,000 increase there for labor. Non-labor, we're asking for a flat this year, keeping that at 828 as compared to last year in that area, trying to operate within that boundaries. But the big change this year is we're asking for another 100,000 in capital contribution to the Girdwood Savings Capital Account. As I feel it is prudent of the community to tackle some of these larger fish culvert projects and get them completed. They're never going to get cheaper than they are now. And we do have a contractor who is capable of completing these projects. And so we feel if we put 300,000 in that account, and then we look at some of maybe our other opportunities for funding through maybe our undesignated account or different things like that, we could get at least one of the two Alyeska Creek projects done next summer. So it is a large increase. There's been a substantial increase in this contribution, but I do feel it goes to important capital projects, especially flood and drainage projects, improvements for residential neighborhoods. So that would be our largest. So the change in our would be $105,000 increase this year, going from 1.4 to almost 1.5 million there. And and then I would have us a estimated mill rate right now of 1.96. Keep in mind, those mill estimates are based on 23 property assessments. We think the assessments are going to go up quite a bit this year because there's been so much new construction in the valley. There's just that much more value coming into the community with those new constructions, and then the real estate market really hasn't dipped much here. So we're still seeing a rise in property values. We should see a larger assessment for 24. So that's sort of an overrun of streets. Any questions? There. Brett's got his hand up.
Brett.
Oh, hi. Thank you for that. I just noticed the IGC charge for the ombudsman as a line item. in here, and I don't know, I'm a little confused on how an adjudicating official within the municipality, potentially this being from a constituent, charges back the community for this. I see it's new, and is this something that we're looking forward to seeing year after year now, or fees from the ombudsman's office based on what? I'm not sure. I guess I'm asking that question.
I can answer this a little bit.
Sure. And I'll just say this, we just cut and paste the IGCs in here. Those aren't determined by us, they're determined by the OMB office through working with different departments on this. But I believe Jennifer Mazzane looked into this because this has been a question I've gotten at each one. And I think the charge came in direct response to how much work they were doing on Girdwood related items. But Jennifer, I'll let you talk more about it.
Brett, thank you for bringing that up. I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, and I, as you know, I've gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole on this one, and I'm not fully out yet. But what I know so far is you're right. It wasn't on a line item before. They didn't even have a code for us until that first 2023, that first charge. These stem from kind of three particular cases that they were working on. They were connected to questions about GBOS as a community council or not, and conflicts of interest, and then also trails. And so those are the kind of three main cases that generated this expense. The part of the rabbit hole I haven't figured out yet is whether or not other road service areas have been similarly charged. And there are some interesting outstanding questions, I think. I mean, it's only $614, but I am wondering, first of all, does it go up? Secondly, it does give a lot of power in the hands of certain individuals to potentially create expense for Girdwood. But then on the other hand, it also could be seen as having a chilling effect on people asking questions of the government, which we should be able to do. So I have not finished asking questions about this, but I'm not going to have any answers for time for this budget. Does that help, Brett?
I really appreciate that, Jen. And I have to agree that I think that levels a chilling effect for adjudication within our government. And I'm just shocked and would like to understand if other areas of the municipality are charged likewise for how many people come through the ombudsman's door to file a complaint about the government. So thank you for checking into that, and I look forward to hearing some kind of answer that describes how this is legitimate and how they hope to be an impartial office when individuals who come into the office then would represent a charge back to the community. So it raises so many questions, and I appreciate you coming back maybe later with a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else have anything on that? Okay.
One quick thing. I think my recollection, but I'm going to go and check the numbers, is that the ombudsman dealt with many hundreds of complaints last year, of which Girdwood represented 3. So we're still a very tiny amount of their workload. But I suspect that that's something OMB does to distribute the cost across the cross departments of the municipality. But yes, I agree. It does kind of, seeing the charge come back, it's kind of it's a very uncomfortable feeling.
Thank you. If that's it on that, we'll move on.
Sure. So parks, we are for the most part offering or requesting a flat budget for 2024. We are moving funds around within the budget. We are putting more funds up towards our labor costs as we have found success with hiring laborers, our summer laborers, and a higher classification to be more competitive with the market out there. Our wages that we are having for our caretaker one positions now are being outpaced by like Alyeska Resort. And they are union positions, so they do have to pay union dues. So when you count that out, it does affect the summer person who's interested in our job. So we like to get higher classification seasonal caretaker 2 or seasonal caretaker 3, which makes it more attractive. And this year we saw success with one position that way. So next year we want to do that. So we're taking that money from what we normally would pay for bringing in a SCA or Alaska Trails crew and knocking that down to 10,000, putting that money up into our labor to hire somebody local so they can do trail crew work for us. And then we would seek grant funding to help subsidize 10,000 that we would have for matching to bring in a SCA or Alaska Trail crew for 2 weeks for a trail crew of 6 to work for us. If we're successful with larger grants, we can have longer periods with these crews. So we'll be chasing those funding, and the RTP grant will be doing that next year. That's what we'll be seeking with that grant. So that's the big change there, but overall it's the same non-labor there. And so for the most part, those add up be about the same as last year. Our big increase is that we're asking for 100,000 more for the parks capital improvement fund. We want to continue to fund that and then tackle some of those projects that are ahead of us as we discussed on the capital list. So just keeping up with inflation and trying to knock some of these projects off and get through our planning stages and different projects we have listed within that area. So that would be the change for this year of $100,000 increase, which would take us from 414 to 514 and round up 515 there. So this is the change for this year, and the mill rate based on 23 assessments would be 0.068. Excuse me, 0.68. Opening questions on parks. Not seeing anything online.
Want to move on to police?
Sure. And then our last budget that we have here is the police budget. And so this is a pretty fixed budget because we're under a 3-year contract with a option for 2-year renewal. But right now we're in year 1 of that contract. Next year will be year 2, and the price will be the same, $793 for the police contract. And then we have our we no longer have a CPI increase because we're set with this 3-year period. And then we have a rental of the ACS building. That's about the only thing that could possibly change for the first quarter. If we do those improvements for the substation, we would probably incorporate those into a new 3-year lease with ACS on those, or maybe a 2-year lease, just depending on the term contract. We just incorporate those improvements into that lease and be there. So we will talk about that most likely with you for first quarter revisions if we move forward on those improvements for 24. And then we have the miscellaneous car towing and police items, which relate to, it is wildlife disposal. If we ever bears have been shot, they've had to be removed. Signs, PSAs, towing cars, which is our largest expense. And then in temporary impound yards and things like that for major events, that's associated with the 12,000. And then most recently, we're helping to fund the cyber bowling workshop that's coming here in October through this fund. So this fund works in many different ways for police-related items that need to be paid for, impound yards, things like that. So overall, no change from last year, $811,000 there for our operating budget for 24 for police.
Just one super quick question about that, Kyle, is that so I gather that towing is not a revenue generator, it's a cost.
It's a cost. Yeah, no, it used to be when raw materials were really high, they would come and get abandoned cars and take them away. But if they do not get somebody who picks up the car, or they can't sell at auction, then we end up paying the towing fees. And so they'll send us a bill eventually. But the impound, when we have the temporary impounds, we contract the towing company to come down here and be here in Girdwood. So they set up, like New Year's night, they'll come, we get them a hotel room at Alyeska, and then they're on call for about 18 hours, and they can be called out for anything to tow. And then for forest fair, they're here for 3 days. For slush cup, they're here for about 12 hours. And so we set them up. So they position, in some years, they may not have any calls, and some years they'll be busy the whole time. So they're just here, and it's a nice resource for police and fire. You know, when fire finds that they can't get through a road because it's too tight, we can instantly call a tow truck and they can be removed instead of waiting hours for a tow truck to come from Anchorage. So that is it for the different budgets that we've discussed through the work sessions. So I'll scroll back up here because our summary page gives you the totals for our operating budgets. I cross my fingers that it's right. The numbers are, they're, translating all the numbers. So yeah, that shows all the numbers. You can see here in this middle section, this shows all the numbers for 2024 operating expenses. We'd be looking at a total of 4.5 million in this. So if the board does approve it, I would ask that we consider writing a letter that can be signed by the chairs that just explains our increases for this year that we can send to OMB and the mayor's office, explaining the service area's recommendations for their 24 budget. As you may be aware, the mayor is requesting flat budgets from the departments in Anchorage, but that doesn't always directly relate to service areas as we operate outside of those areas. But there is sort of a tone across the community. But service areas, for the most part, control their budgets and send them to the mayor, and the mayor then presents them to the assembly. So I think a letter would help to establish the thoughts of the board if you do pass these budgets tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. I have a quick question.
Sure.
When the motion is made, do all the numbers need to be read out loud? They're right here.
I think they don't have to, but we would include it in the motion. So we would write the details out. When Margaret does the minutes, we would put in the details of each budget number.
Okay.
We don't have to go through, but you can say as presented tonight.
Well, okay, perfect. Follow-up question for Parks and Recreation total. The 517 is for the 3,100 in revenue. So then it says 514 after that 3,100 for this room that has revenue. So then it's the balance. It says it's 514.
Okay, see, that's why I was a little worried about that number up there.
But
I'm gonna get.
No,
let me go down to it real quick.
it's highlighted. Well, it's not highlighted, but it says balance. It says 514.
It is. See, did I have it up there? It's 517.
Yes.
And okay, so yeah, it is 514. So yeah, it should be
Okay.
514 up there.
Okay, so that top chart is helpful, but would be saying 514.
Yes.
Okay. Great. I'd be happy to move that GBOS approve the budgets as presented tonight for 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Brianna. Do we have any discussion from the board?
I have discussion and an amendment. I'd like to make an amendment. We add a component for the housing and economic development funds for our service of $50,000 normally allocated to a housing improvement plan or a housing implementation plan. Although that's something we decide how it actually gets spent later in the year when we do a specific allocation to a project. This is just approving the space in the taxing authority. There's a variety of reasons for that. Currently, it's taking many, many months to do the procurement process We don't have any funds, any fund balance or accounts or anything else set up for housing and economic development. I would see this as a multi-month problem if we make changes later in the year, for example, the first quarter budget revision, which means any activity we want to do in housing and economic development is going to be delayed until the fall or later next year. I think we have a problem that's more urgent than that, and this gives us at least a capacity, although what we actually do with it is a decision to make later. By putting something in now, it means that funds are allocated, or funds are structured, accounts are set up in S&P. It allows us to do things before the sort of April, May, June, summertime way, and it gives us at least the opportunity to act soon. I think it would be a mistake to push things back 6 or 8 months in the area of housing.
I'll second the amendment.
For the record, normally you make the motion and then you give the justification and the discussion, but okay. So we now have a seconded amendment. So first discussions will be about the amendment. Do we have anything from board beyond what?
I'll put back to my earlier justification.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have sorry, are there any comments or hands raised online?
No, let me share. No, he's closest. None at this. Brett's hand is up.
Okay, Brett, please go ahead.
Oh, right. I thought I might at least jump in as chairman of the Housing and Economic Committee. I just wanted to relate that to this point, the body has not come up with anything specific to spend any money on. So I just wanted to throw that out. It seems that we've got at least 1 or 2 topics here under new business to discuss as output from the committee. But to date, we don't have anything defined or allocated or flagged for resources at this point.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I have to say that this feels to me like we're setting up a bank account for a committee, and we don't have that for any other committees. We should have that. I believe our fiduciary responsibilities include having an idea of what money is to be spent on, and so I'm not comfortable with forward funding without specific in the requests. As Brett has said, we don't have a specific requests at all, actually, right now. And so I don't like the idea of setting up bank accounts for committees, which that's essentially what this does. I don't think that's, and I also really object to the last minute nature of this. This Proposition 7 passed in April. We've had 3 budget meetings on this. This is our essentially 4th and final. Having this come forward as an action item at this point is really problematic for me. I think this is not good public process. So I object to the amendment.
Just say them.
Yeah.
This is Brianna. I would just add that we discussed this at least 2 out of the 3 budget meetings, but they're work sessions, so we couldn't act on them. And it was, I mentioned my concern about the urgency and that it was an effort to get the, not bond, but the ballot measure passed in as soon as April, and we already have been enduring a housing crisis, and having this power is something that we could help the community that supported this measure by creating a place for funds, and then that Housing and Economic Development Committee that has been working hard will come forward with something probably very soon, but it all takes time, and it took time for them to start up and come back with ideas. So I would support this amendment.
Amanda has her hand up.
Amanda.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the committee, they would need to present a project for use of this funding. They don't just have free access to it, correct?
Right. Right.
And I do think that future budget revisions can cause delay, and getting plans in motion can be really helpful for this crisis we're experiencing. So I'm supportive.
Okay, do we have any further comments? Anything online?
No.
Okay. I think we should call for a vote.
Okay, so this is a vote on the amendment. Jennifer Wingard,
No.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. So that amendment, and now you're back to the original motion as amended.
So now we have in front of us the motion to approve the budget as outlined with the addition of the 50,000 for GHEC.
So I have some, sorry. Nothing.
No, I was pointing this way. It's hand up.
Yes. Do we have any further comments? I gather we have further comments.
I do.
Let it rip.
Yeah, so just on this is on the overall budget of for Girdwood service area. So it's very interesting and instructive to look back on what we're spending on the services within Girdwood over the last. I've looked back to 2015, but really back to 2017 when we started fully funding police services locally, and we were spending around 3 million or so between 2017 and I think it crept up to about 3.5 million 2021, and now we're at 4.5 million. And we've increased several components, but I think the thing that really jumps out at me is how much more we're putting into capital savings than we were before. So historically, we were saving the equivalent of about 0.3, 0.4 mil. And now we're looking this year at around about 0.9, almost 1. So, that a big chunk of that. So especially if we look back to, I think one of our higher rates was 5.4 mil back in 2018, I think it was, 2018, of which we were basically spending 5 on operations and about 0.4 on capital. This year, we're potentially looking at 5.9 mil, and we're spending about 0.9 mil on capital, and the same, more or less, 5 on operations. So although we see what appears to be a pretty big increase, so much of that is just the capital reserves we're putting away. And there are other ways we can do this, so maybe in the future when we should look at other potential ways of doing this. If we had access to bonds, that'd be one way of doing it. I think there's other ways we can use funding and capital resources within the municipality, and I think loans within the municipality. We're obviously making use of that in the short term for the fire department. But I think in general we need to sort of look at the budget as both, 0.5 mil is basically operations and 1 mil daily is investment. And as the infrastructure here has grown, we need to spend more on maintenance. We need to spend more in investing in future changes and also maintaining what we have. So I see a fairly significant growth in terms of dollars, but in terms of actually how the money is being used, it's very, very similar to what we've been doing since we brought in the fire department, since we brought in police services back in 2017. But the balance has changed. So I will vote to approve.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or statements about the budget in this motion?
No, just thank Kyle for all of his work and presentations on everything. Attention to details.
Thank you, sir.
Now we do have one hand up from the public. Is it Sheila?
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So may I ask a question about just the process for the budgeting? Like this budget, will it go just to the mayor's office, or do we give a copy to our assembly members also?
It does go through the what is called the OMB, the Operation and Management Budget Office, which then goes to the mayor. and then the mayor presents the whole package to the assembly. The assembly approves the budgets for the whole municipality.
So we don't give them an upfront preview of what we're asking for with explanations prior to the mayor presenting it. Is that correct?
The GBOS members sometimes do share directly with the assembly members, but from a staff perspective, we are assigned to send it right to the OMB office, and then they present it to the mayor's office.
Okay, thank you.
So connected to that, actually, do we have it implicit within the current, sorry, Kyle's suggestion, do we have that implicit within our current motion? Or does the board, do we need any discussion on following up on this idea of having an explanation?
It's not
addendum.
I didn't hear it explicitly in the motion, but Kyle recommended before that we also write a letter to OMB in this year.
Okay.
And the chair, one of the chairs or two of the chairs have to sign it.
I'm happy to make an amendment if that's valuable.
I was thinking maybe we could do that. Just,
I propose an amendment to add a commentary to explain why we're looking at an increased budget this year
Second.
for the chairs to co-chairs to write.
okay, so do we have any discussion about that? The amendment? Any objections at all? Can we consensus approve that amendment to the motion? Okay. And then are we ready to vote on the motion overall? Do we have any other discussion?
All right. Any hands? Okay. We'll go for the vote. Jennifer Wingard?
No.
Brianna Sullivan?
Yes.
Mike Edgington?
Yes.
Amanda Sassy?
Yes.
The motion passes 3-1.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bravo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's been a journey. I mean, I guess it is every year, but yeah. All right, let's move on. Sorry, Girdwood Trail Committee and agenda item LUC 2308-05, review of design proposed for the Winter Creek Trail Suspension Bridge crossing Glacier Creek. Kyle, you are on again.
Yes, so get to these items and I think I'm done. I know I got one more after this. So we are presenting to you tonight the second meeting of the 35% design update for the new bridge that will eventually replace the hand tram at the Glacier Creek crossing of the Winter Creek Trail. Here you'll see the project location if you're unfamiliar where this is. And this is a map from the new Girdwood Trails plan that shows the project there at B6. As well where, as many of the community members know, the hand tram has been closed and has been closed for several years. And we are working through a design process to put a new suspension bridge in to replace the hand tram at this location. And tonight I will share with you what that design looks like, and then also interpretive shelter that will go along with the bridge that will help capture the history of the different crossings of this area, and especially the hand tram, which was very much a sweetheart of the community, as it was a community-built tram or crossing mechanism for this portion of the trail. So diving into it, give you a little perspective on where we're at. I'm going to this a little smaller and search. There it goes. So we would be using the existing alignment where the hand tram is now to build a 206-foot cable suspension bridge that would span this area. That bridge would be 6 feet wide to accommodate two-way traffic. It would be constructed of galvanized steel and rail fencing installed on either side of the trail just to help with the approach to the bridge. We build the reason we use the galvanized steel and cabling is that it's the most durable and the most long lasting. At the very minimum, we want this bridge to last 50 years, but much longer than that with good maintenance. And then we would also build a hand tram interpretive shelter, which would reuse most of the hand tram structure and equipment to display a interpretive history of it there. So you can kind of see here, just to give you perspective, where we're at. We have the west approach and the east approach. The west approach is the Crow Creek side, road side, and then the east approach is the Alyeska Hotel side. And the alignment would come in those areas. Going down here, this would give you a perspective of where the current tram terminals are, the abutments, the big cement bases for those tram terminals. As you can see, we would try to build right over those and try to incorporate them as we can into the design. And so they would stay in place. They probably would have to be reshaped in a way so that the new bridge sits over the top of them, but they would go right over that. And our goal is to minimize the impact to the environment, especially with cutting trees. There will have to be some trees cut, but for the most part, trying to minimize that and just put it right back into, because we realize that probably the tram is there for a reason, because that is the best crossing after researching the area the last couple of years to determine alternative locations to cross the creek in that aspect. We would use some galvanized steel fencing on the east approach to help just keep people directed towards it and help protect the cliff sides there. It's pretty steep on that side, and just keep people on the pathway so it doesn't widen through there and deliver them to the bridge. And then it would be a ramp approach on each side. Right now it is steps up and down on the tram terminals, depending on which side you are, but this would be a ramp approach, realizing that the future for ADA access across this bridge is a reality with the new bikes and e-bikes that are coming out, making access on trails much easier for all users. And then our bridge would have cable backstay. So, and I'll give you a little idea about that here as we go forward. So this would be a concept drawing of what the bridge would look like. Like I said, it would be all steel construction. We would have safety web net that would go up 54 inches on the side. There'll be steel towers. They're just about 30 feet tall that would carry the cable, suspension cable up and over. And then we'd have a longitudinal cable that runs 7 feet high. And that would help with winter crossings, knowing that we're going to have winter pack on there. And so the rails would be lower as this snowpack grows on it. One thing I want to point out is that we are doing this build in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. They're working closely with us on design and anticipation that they will be taking over ownership of the bridge once it's built, as they right now maintain and control the Winter Creek Trail that leads up to each side of this bridge. They're very much on board with this project, as they recognize suspension bridges will be needed on the other sections of the Iditarod Trail, especially in Turnagain Pass. And so they're excited to go through this design phase and build this project that work for them on other projects. The decking would be protruded fiberglass grating, which would also have a 24-inch dog strip on it. We know that dogs don't like to walk across things that are open and they can see down. So that dog strip would allow for dogs who are more skittish to hopefully eat across easier. It's something that they use in Europe for their suspension bridges, and it seems to work there. And then we would have sort of a galvanized safety fencing that would lead up to the bridge on probably both sides to sort of direct traffic in there. So that kind of gives you the perspective of the material and what it would look like there. The red crude drawings here just give you a perspective of where the tram terminals are now. And as you can see on the east approach, the Alyeska Hotel side approach, the bridge will be going back further just because we want to get further away from that cliff. The way that abutment now is on that side, it's right on the cliff face. And so we would push that back a bit further just so that we have better ground to grab into. But we pretty much use the area where the west side or the Crow Creek roadside abutment is to build those towers on that side. The interpretive shelter, as you can see here, is it talks about, well, we will be reusing the existing tram shelter out there to build it. It would be a slab on grade cement floor. We would put the cart in there so that it's pretty, it's stationary. We hope to make it interactive so people can still climb in the cart. We would hang it from the shivs above, give the feel what it's like when it was in operation, and then there'd be interpretive signs. And then we reuse the rails and the stainless steel fencing that we have currently right now in and the tram terminals out there. So that would kind of give you an overrun there in that aspect. So that is a overview of where we're at this point, the 35% design. We have taken this through Trails Committee and LUC, and it has been well accepted, and we've had full support for the 35% design. And so we're before GBOS tonight seeking a resolution of support, as you can see here, for the project. And we hope GBOS will give that to us and we can keep moving forward. We're still on pace to get our design done and hopefully have this out to bid sometime in mid-winter. And then with the realization that hopefully we can get a contractor on and possibly build at some point in 24, if not build in 25, allowing the contractor the adequate time to procure the equipment that is needed to build it. We're realistic that supply lines may be difficult, especially for steel. And so it may take us through next summer, and then right away they can get started in the spring of 25 and get it built. So we're trying to be realistic with the community as to what challenges we may have going forward. So that's overrun. I'll open up for questions.
I have a recollection, I think one of the earlier feasibility studies, there was talk about having to use a kind of heavy lift helicopter, which wasn't available in the state. Has the design taken that into account?
Yes. And so what that was we had looked at several different options for a bridge build, and one was a complete stiff structure, which would reuse a bridge that came off of Parks Highway. Yep. And at that point, we would need a heavy lift. One thing we have talked about through this design is that we would want this design to not be anything more than an A-Star helicopter or Bell helicopter could carry, which have one right here in the valley. So we would want a design that would be adequate for them to build with those type of. So we wouldn't have to have because like the heavy lifts would have to come from out of state, and then you try to schedule them, and they're extremely expensive.
So that's not an issue.
No, that's not an issue.
Sky isn't here. Can I formally make a motion to approve resolution 2023-15?
I'll second the motion.
All right, do we have any further discussion about this? Yes.
Question for Kyle. Is Forest Service mandating the galvanized post and rail fencing?
No, but it has been a discussion through the whole design process and the design team that has come in.
Okay.
Yep, and the use of galvanized materials has just been the most prudent from cost effect and also maintenance effect. You know, as we've seen great success with ski resorts using the same material.
Yeah. Is there going to be kind of like maybe a line item in the as the package moves forward as the cost of that fence?
Yeah, it'll be part of they'll be looking at all that. So, you know, one thing that we will be evaluating is when we get the professional estimates back is maybe there may be some portions of the design that we may feel that could be cut out to help deal with the costs, but none of the cuts will be related to decreasing the safety aspect of the bridge. If we need to, we'll have to go seek additional funding.
All right, Kyle, do we have anything online? Or
Nope, I have nothing online.
All right, so call for a vote.
Okay, Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
That motion passes 4-0.
Oh. All right, I'm just briefly note we're at 9:05. We're on item number 11. This is looking a little daunting for our overall timeline, but we'll move ahead as we can. I just want to double check with the board members, particularly here, if anyone needs a quick break. Or are you guys okay? And Kyle?
I'm doing okay.
You've been on stage here.
I'm gonna push you. I got one more, and then I think I can run away, and you guys can do whatever you want. So.
Oh, is that right?
I'll just keep flipping pages.
Okay. So moving on to item number 11, GFR request for additional $14.95 from the GFR 406 account.
Yeah. So the board approved back in the winter funding for replacement of a two-place trailer. The trailer got hit by the contractor, was buried in snow during the winter, and the contractor paid for the value of the trailer. But now that they've gotten through it and some more thinking has been done, they'd like to upgrade this trailer to a ATV, UTV ATV trailer that's more functional for them, that works better with their hose training, that works better with moving their ATVs, and works better with moving the snow machines. So there is additional cost there. So they're requesting $1,495 additional to purchase that. And right now it does say here $5,209, but that was fixed. They took off a spare tire, which wasn't needed. And so it brought the cost down to $4,999.85. So that the $1,495 would help them get to that and purchase this trailer. So that's what they're seeking out of the capital fund.
That's good. Sorry.
I'll move to make a motion to move $1,495 from capital, from the 406 account.
I was just going to ask, is the right way to do this to verify the total, to talk about the total amount? So we replace our last motion with one of the total of 3,495.
You could say that, yeah.
How about you say it?
So I move that we allocate $3,495 from the Girdwood Fire Rescue 406 account to replacement of utility training.
Second.
Perfect. Do we have any discussion? Anything online?
Nope.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Browna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. I need a drink of water. Okay, moving on to agenda item 12, request for GBOS resolution supporting no parking signs to be placed on one side of Donna Road. And that's our PSAC supervisor who's covering this.
I'll speak to this. Basically, we've had a strong request from the residents on the airport side, especially those who access Donner Road, for no parking signs to be placed on one side due to the overflow parking that's coming out of the brewery on busy weekends. People will park double side, and it makes it difficult for them to get through. And we have concerns about emergency vehicles getting through at times because large trailers parking on both sides. So we've done this step before where we send the request to traffic and then they usually respond. So we're asking GBOS to support this request for them to come out and determine which side of the road they would put the no parking signs on in that section.
Unless Supervisor Sassy would like to, I'll move resolution 2023-16.
Yes, I'd like to move this resolution of support for installation of no parking signs on Donna Road as written.
So we have motion, it's been seconded. Do we have any discussion?
I've got a question. So I know the brewery has posted their sort of no RVs and no trailer sign outside the entrance. So obviously with the way things work now with no parking requirements on commercial entities, what effectively they're saying is RVs and trailers need to be parked somewhere else on residential streets or back in the town square or something. I just wondered if we got any discussions with the brewery itself about the issue of parking in that area.
I haven't had any direct conversations with them. We're mostly just responding to the request from the community for these no parking signs. So,
I mean, I agree on the need.
I noticed the other weekend trailers all along Alaska Highway all the way up to Timberline. I don't know if you saw that, but it looks like a complete parade.
yes.
Also has no parking signs.
Yes,
Yeah.
all along right next to the no parking signs. Yes, exactly. Okay, can we call for vote? Are we done talking? Sorry. Anything else? Okay.
Yep. No hands online. Okay. I'll go. Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Excellent. Moving on, item number 13, update on request for GBOS resolution of support for, oh, sorry, we just skipped that. Sorry. Let's move on to the land acknowledgement.
Okay, number 14, the updated suggestions are in the packet. So due to time constraints tonight, I'm happy if anyone has already looked at this, if they have any comments, or make your comments ready for next regular meeting. Because I know maybe one person that wanted to participate hasn't yet. But otherwise, can marinate and then go to Melissa Shaganoff would be the ultimate that Margaret suggested after GBOF comes to a decision, close to a decision.
Okay,
So
so
suggest could we start that discussion before final version is brought back to GBOS? So perhaps that could be done between now and the next meeting. I've just discussed the alternatives and the different things that we've pulled together. Get some feedback on those, and then perhaps we can bring something could be brought forward at the next meeting.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
yes. Okay. So I think we'd be looking forward. We need to make a motion to bring this again back at our next meeting.
Yeah, so I move to postpone action until our October meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, perfect. We'll do this by consent if we have no more discussion about it. Do we have any objection to doing so? Okay, and if not, we will move that to our meeting in October. Item 15, this is still on, right? Girdwood Fire and Rescue Board of Directors recommendation for GBOS resolution of support for property tax exemptions.
I have a disclosure for number 15.
Yes.
My partner is a career firefighter for Anchorage Fire Department. And this current item applies to volunteer firefighters only in this community. But if, or in the future, if this passes and becomes a benefit, and then my significant other also becomes a volunteer, then maybe I would benefit from this. But I don't feel that this is a conflict. And I also feel that this is something lots of members in the community are able to benefit from someday if it passes. So I'm fine with the chair making a decision or the board.
Well, as chair, I'm fine with making the decision unless the board disagrees with this. And I am not going to read through the question. I mean, personally, I have read through the questions. I am not going to repeat them. This sounds to me like like it is not a current conflict of interest, and it turning into a conflict of interest would require several hypotheticals. I mean, so I'm going to rule that you're welcome to vote on it. And it does not qualify as a conflict of interest in this case.
Thank you.
Okay. If anyone disagrees with that, now's your chance. All right, and let's move on to an introduction of this topic.
Right, just briefly. So we had a discussion last month, and then moved it to this month for action, or postponed it to this month for action. So we have a resolution, perhaps on the board, quite on, but in the packet, which I think explains the rationale. It's really, it's in terms of financial benefits, it's relatively minor. It's really more an acknowledgement of, it's a symbolic, I suppose, acknowledgement of the commitment to community that volunteer firefighters and EMS personnel make, and maybe a small help in the retention problem, which retention issues, which I know both volunteer fire departments have. It's something which we see in other communities and other boroughs within the state, And I think it's something we should definitely propose that the Assembly act on for Anchorage. I suspect it's one of these issues that the Assembly rightfully, or understandably, I should say, not rightfully, understandably tends to focus on issues that affect Anchorage Bowl and the majority of Anchorage, which is covered by a professional fire department, by AFD. So issues that relate to, Girdwood and Turning an Arm and Chugiak sometimes get forgotten. And this might be an example of that. So I think part of our role here is to remind the municipality that there are communities outside the bowl which exist and have needs. So I think this serves a number of useful purposes. One point I would make, and I'll make this every time I discuss the fire department and the relationship to AFD and Girdwood, is every single fire station within AFD is closer to Eagle River than it is to us. Even the one in South Anchorage is closer to Eagle River than it is to Girdwood. So we really are out here by ourselves. And that's why Girdwood Fire in particular is such a valuable and important part of our community. There is a small FAQ in there, a couple of answers to a couple of questions which I've seen or heard or people have asked me. So if there isn't a question which is answered in here, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so for the sake of discussion, would you like to?
Sorry, I will move move that we accept resolution 2023-17 as written.
I will second. Brianna.
All right, and do we have any further comments or questions about this from the board?
I would just say that last meeting was really productive and had a lot of discussion and feedback right next door coming over here and speaking to this. And they were really supportive. I'm really happy to hear it. Well received.
Any further comments? Let's have a vote.
Jennifer Wintegard?
Yes.
Sorry, I did say a couple of comments on the.
Oh, do we have some?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, Brett, go ahead.
Sorry.
I saw that come up.
Oh, thanks. Just real quickly, I thought it was asked before, but did we get an idea how many volunteer or firefighters this would entail, and then what that total amount would be? Is there an idea of that?
Let me see if Chief Weston is still online.
She is. Her hand's up next.
Okay. Chief Weston.
Okay. Yeah. So Chugiak has approximately 100 volunteers. Girdwood has we roster up to 50 paid on call members. So 150 would be the grand total. And then my only other comment would be just to make sure that the nonprofit organization name is Girdwood Fire and Rescue, not anymore Girdwood Volunteer Fire and Rescue. I saw that in the resolution, so I just wanted to be transparent on that as well.
Brett, did you have a follow-up question about that?
Well, I guess thank you for that. I was just trying to get an idea of service area tax relief in its total amount under this program. I was like, if we had 50 in the valley, say, how many might qualify? Is it like 50, at 10,000 a piece is what I'm trying to just figure out what that means.
I can help with this if this is
sure.
If all 50 members did qualify, which is unlikely because I don't think all 50 probably own property within the municipality. But if they did, that would reduce our current, based on last year, our current assessed value from 768.3 million to 767.7 million. So that would result in about 0.01% of a change.
Thank you.
May I add just one thing? This is Brianna. In the link right here online or on the screen, the codes for Fairbanks, North Star Borough, and Kenai Peninsula Borough define what the volunteer firefighter is, and that is approved annually to qualify for both of those boroughs. That might be part of it too.
Okay, do we have any further hands up?
No.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, should we please?
Okay.
Vote.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you for your work on that one. It's great.
Actually, would it be possible to take a couple of minute break?
Yes. Yes, we're gonna take, can we, is 3 minutes good? Okay, we're gonna take a 3-minute
Back at 9:20.
back at,
What time is it?
The computer
nine-
says 9:20.
Yeah, it's 9:23.
okay. 9:20. Couldn't last.
I actually didn't think. Just,
That's inhuman.
we'll do it.
Real quick, any new business we don't cover, anybody else have a special meeting? Yeah,
Make a motion.
right.
Smoker's not here.
Right, right. I mean, I think would be different not to. Okay.
Okay.
We reconvene.
Yes, you are good to go.
Okay, we're gonna jumping into, welcome back. Anybody's online, I can't even tell. We're gonna hit new business, number 16, discussing Glacier Creek erosion concerns.
Yes, let me get the screen back up. So we have been following through on, well, we've been watching this and this has to do with the Alyeska Bridge over Glacier Creek out here. There is erosion on the east abutment. It started around Forest Fair. We alerted DOT at that time of that erosion, and we've seen active or increased erosion. It has sort of stabilized because the tree has come down and gave some sort of protection. But anyways, we reached out to DOT, and in this packet, you can see some of our interaction with them that we had related to what's going on. AWU Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility has strong concerns about this location because they have seen they have a significant infrastructure there related to the city water that runs underneath the pedestrian bridge there. And when you go by there, there is a manhole right there, which is part of the whole system, which is in danger of being exposed if active erosion continues. The quick and simple response that we've gotten from DOT is that they're going to do something about it in the spring of 24. They, at this point, have no funding source to tackle it. And so they are seeking federal funds to address this. Alyeska Highway is classified as a federal highway. And so they're seeking federal funds to help with the repair. And so they are comfortable at this point in time with letting it sit over the winter. As I mentioned, I just spoke with AWU this afternoon. They are very uncomfortable with letting it sit over the winter, that to the point that they're looking at possibly doing mitigation efforts just to protect their infrastructure in that area. We were hoping that DOT would be able to do something this fall, especially when freeze up comes and before snow goes, that they could get in there and access it and basically replace armoring in there, which is riprap, large boulders, things along those points. But they are working through the design and funding process now at this point in time and plan to tackle it in the fall. So I know that AWU has gone up the ladder to their leadership to try to address it. They've gotten direct responses from DOT, both at the hydrology and at the maintenance and operation leadership, that they need funding before they can act. But they are open if somebody else wants to go in there and do the work to help mitigate the problem. But at this point in time, this is a DOT right of way. It is a federal funded highway, and it's within their responsibility to take care of that. So that's what we are addressing at this point on that. So I wanted to give you guys an update. I do think it would be pertinent that GBOS through the road supervisor writes a letter to the DOT stating their thoughts. And I'm not telling you what you should state, but I think it's good that community input is coming in for this and is addressed, because if that was to erode more, then it would really endanger the pedestrian bridge. It's hard to say how much it would endanger the Alyeska Highway itself. That's driven on pretty deep piles. So it's hard to say how much, it would take to get back to that. But the pedestrian bridge does sit out there, and I don't know what supports those abutments are on. So, and the AWU infrastructure is definitely critical. It feeds water in a loop. It's part of the loop system. It goes into town square, feeds here, over to the school, and it gets fed and goes up underneath the airport, comes back and loops, and then goes up valley that way. So, and AWU has expressed strong concern about this erosion that's actually happened. So that's a quick, long-winded speech on what's going on there.
Excellent. Do we have any? Yes.
Well, I was just going to thank Kyle for following up on this and including all the emails. And then the ask of one of these said to please email a certain group or address, so that I hope community is not always bothering you, but to go straight to the emails that were listed. But on a separate note, because this is new business, could the roads or streets maintenance supervisor still write a letter with their name? And
yes,
get that going.
Yeah, and we can do that individually, and they can represent our concerns from the maintenance side of it.
Okay. Be great.
But if you had any input you wanted to share with the supervisor, which would be, and Amanda, we're talking about you, you may want to share it with her now.
My question was, you mentioned the able water supply. Is there also a sewer service as well? Does that go underneath it?
This area is water. I think the sewer is separated and comes through on a different location. They have to have separation. They can't be on their same bridge.
Right. So is that under the highway bridge, or is that?
It may be it may be under the highway bridge, but I'm not quite sure.
My second question is, as you identified in the correspondence, we have we have high water or potential flooding events, typically in the fall, occasionally in the spring. So we have 2 rounds of where we have the highest risk between now and when DOT is planning to do anything about it. So if it becomes an emergency, does that then fall onto us as taxpayers to cover that from our funds and then hope for a reimbursement, or will DOT actually act on it if it becomes an emergency?
No, I don't think it becomes taxpayer responsibility.
It would be our responsibility, but if DOT is saying they can't fund it.
It's the state of Alaska's responsibility.
Okay.
The structure of the state right now is that there isn't a lot of money given to maintenance. And, most of our money for highway systems comes from federal funding, which is mostly 90%. So repairs like this usually try to get tied into a federal funding string that comes in, and the state only has to come up with a 10%. So you end up in these situations where the state is unable to respond because they don't have money in reserves to make things like this happen, unless it turns into an emergency situation. So if it becomes like, we're going to lose this, then they will probably go full bore in there. But right now, they don't feel like they're losing the bridge. They just feel like they have active erosion going on. So they're not being proactive to go in there and deal with it. They're taking more of a reactive stage to the fact that we'll plan, find money, then repair it.
Is there any other infrastructure that's at risk? So the bridge, which obviously would affect AWIP, that's still the bridge itself. Is there any other infrastructure that's at risk?
I do think there's utilities that run underneath that pedestrian way as well. And then there's also a telephone pole that's there right there. So communication, and then the lighting for the pedestrian path as well.
The fiber optic under the bridge there too?
There is fiber optic, but I think that's tied to the main bridge.
I think this again, as you said, Carl, this ties into this problem I have with DOT. If they look at very, very expensive, big, huge capital projects when it's new work, and then there's nothing left for maintenance. So this is exactly the sort of problem we're going to be facing constantly with their proposed 30, 40 or 70 million or 80 million, I think, in the latest proposal for the interchange down at Seward Highway. They'll build it, spend all that money, and then it'll be unmaintainable.
Correct.
Well, in light of that, I wonder if it makes sense to move this to old business for next meeting and have a resolution from the board.
Well, to interrupt, it would be old business next meeting.
Right, I'm just wanting to make sure it comes back.
Oh, sorry.
And then we're not handing it to Amanda and saying, here you go, here's the ball. I want to make sure the ball comes back.
Yes, I think we can give a more formal resolution, but in the meantime, Amanda could probably write email to this chain and represent the service area's concerns about this, and then follow up with a resolution later on. I could go to the director level.
Right. Is that all on this item?
That's it.
Right. Okay, moving on to item number 17, discuss 4-acre proposal for training on effective board meetings, not to exceed 1825. And this one is my bailiwick. We have talked about this before. What is new here is the amount, but it's actually kind of old business to talk about this. But just as a reminder, and to anyone who might still be listening, this is about board training for the entire community. And the idea here is to kind of get the whole community and all of our various boards. I have noticed in attending various boards and meetings here that they're all operating under their own cultures, which I think is fine. But I think as we are having some more major decisions coming down the pipe, especially about things like the road and future developments of the valley, that as more emotion gets laid on the decisions, it's very important to have an understanding of the systems underneath the parliamentary systems. So I want to say about the price, I had hoped for less and I did find less, but they were not have the credentials. So these are the best. This is 4-acre, and this is really kind of the gold standard for this kind of training in our area. So the cheaper options I found were not, wasn't something I could justify spending money on. So I'm sorry, but this is the best I could do. But again, this is also their estimate of the maximum. They say it's very often that we can spend less planning time and less driving time. So anyway, but because this is new business, this will come back. I just want to answer any questions, or if the board has, if any members of the board or public have things they want me to track down for this discussion, then let me know now and I'll figure out the answer for next time.
Thank you, Jennifer, for looking into this, and I look forward to next as well.
So, yeah, just have one question. So Foraco mostly focuses on non-profits. Is this meant to be both for other non-profits in the valley and for sort of government?
Everybody.
Yeah. So are they okay, and are they prepared to extend it to the issues around government meetings as well?
Yes. I said it's a little new for them, but yes. But thank you for that.
This is great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for finding it.
Okay. Item 18, GBOS.
Could I,
project.
really quick, I just
Oh,
have
yeah.
a question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Would this be in person, virtual, or hybrid? Do you have that figured out yet?
Yes, I would like it to be hybrid, but it's designed to be, she will be coming down, the trainer will be coming down to Girdwood, and I was hoping to have it in this room with, and again, with all the committees or anyone. You don't even have to be on a committee. Because sooner or later, all of us end up online anyway, it seems like. So if you ever have been, would be, or might be on a committee, please come. All right, did that answer your question, Amanda?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay, if that's all right, moving on then, GBOS discussing projects for MOA and SOA capital improvement projects.
So I think we have to do some cleanup, and we've been looking at this. We've been seeing the MOA capital improvement requests come out, and we are trying to work with the city to clean that up, which especially the ones that they're sending to the state for potential state requests. In particular, one is like they have right now improvements for the road access to the airport system. I put in several requests to have that be improvements, funding for improvements of Girdwood service area roads in that area. So we'll be working on that, but at the next meeting, I'll hopefully have clarification on that and bring that back to the board and establish that we are all on board with what the city's doing there. So it could be it'll be a bit of a struggle to get that changed, but I'll see what I can do.
There's a slightly broader discussion here about how we as a body interact with the whole CIP process. There is this municipal-wide process that most other community councils follow, but we don't, which is answering a set of questionnaires in the spring, and then there's some division during the summer, and then there's supposed to be a CIP list pulled together for the budget season. And for whatever reason, we never really seem to kind of get along with that. So, for example, in the CIP list, or the capital project list, which Carl's referring to, includes projects that are going to be funded by the MOA, projects which are going to be funded by bonds, projects which they're going to ask the state or federal government for, and it doesn't include things like the cemetery bond, which we've been discussing for several years, and I know the Assembly is on board with, etc. So there's some lack of coordination here, both with us and with the process and with the administration and the Assembly. So it's not just here. I mean, it's all over the place, but disorganized. But we do need to, we probably need to just come up with our own short list and make sure that's publicized.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on this? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kyle. All right, Ruane Road replacement status.
So I'll just quickly touch on this. We talked about earlier, but we have located the 1.6 million with the EPA. We are coordinating with AWU as they have also community grants associated with the EPA related to wastewater, drinking water, and stormwater. So we will be moving forward on that. So hopefully over the next month, we will start to get those applications in and give you a bigger update on what's going on at the next meeting.
Thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate all the work you do tracking down grants and money. Moving on to number 20, GBOS review of GBSA nonprofit grant applications and amounts of requests for 2024.
So we have received requests for 24 up here on the board, as you can see, or on screen. And so it is the same applicants as last year. And then you can see their request amounts here. We are budgeted for 35,000 as we have been for the last several years. And so you'll be receiving these packets from Margaret leading up to you guys voting on these requests. And we will have the public presentations here in October. So this gives you an idea of who's applied and what the request amounts are. So and usually we just work it out so that we end up with a total of 35,000, as you can see with past grantees. So yep, that's where we're at for 24.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that item? Board or anyone else? All right. Urban Trail Committee recommendation for GBOS resolution of support for a grant to work on the Middle Iditarod National Historic Trail.
So we're introducing this tonight and we'll have more details at the next meeting, but you can see here we put up a public notice. We are seeking grant funding for the Middle Iditarod National Historic Trail. So that's the section from the Girdwood School up to the second crossing of Crow Creek Road where it enters the U.S. Forest Service portion of this trail. We really want to focus on bringing that trail up to its parameters and making improvements there. So we're seeking an RTP grant, state of Alaska, to make those improvements. You can see the highlight here on that. So we'll be coming to you with a resolution of support for this grant next month. And our submittal is due at the end of October. So so we'll be seeking public input up till then. So we're just making notice of it with you and preparing you for action next month.
Thank you, Kyle. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, GTC recommendation for GBOS resolution of support for Bikewood RTP grant application to construct new trails, TVA from the Bike Park Master Plan.
So that I think Dan Starr is here. He can speak to it. Dan, you there?
I am here. Thank you. This is Dan Starr. We are hoping to get back to trail building out in the 5K zone next summer with hopefully 2 new trails. So we are hoping to also pursue the RTP grant this fall. I'll have a public notice up by the end of this week on the bulletin board at the post office, and then some more details also next month with a map with the 2 proposed new trails on it. And yeah, that's really about it.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm not sure if I have a question. Dan, thank you for staying on. Would this resolution be drafted already by Trails then with your names?
It should be by next, because we'll go to Trails first next month and have the resolution there, and then bring that, I guess, to GBOS after that, the way I understand it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Thank you for hanging in there. I know we've got a couple people hanging on, so thank you very much for that. All right, moving on to number 23, Girdwood Turnigan Arm Lions Club and staff request for updated resolution of support.
So this is the other grant that we're currently writing for the end of October, and this would be a land, water, and conservation fund grant for the construction of the pathway and picnic pavilion at the Lions Club Park with future dedication to John Troutner. So this is something we are working closely with, and Turnigan Arms Lions Club has made a commitment of raising $25,000 to help with matching funds for this project, and then we'll be trying to seek the rest through the land, water, and conservation grant. So we'll be back next month with resolution for support of this project.
Thank you. Anything else? Great. You guys?
Just one comment. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but there has been some change in code about the way things are, the way municipal facilities are named, and maybe this doesn't count, maybe it does. I don't know. It's just something to be aware of.
At the very least, we want to build a pavilion and then go through the process that's been established through the municipality about dedicating parks or park buildings.
Because that changed as of last week.
Correct.
Anything else on that item? Moving on to 24, agenda item LUC 2309-05, liquor license renewals.
So this is a standard procedure with liquor license. Today, we're introducing this new business. If anybody has any objections related to any of the renewals of this license, please bring them forward. They can give them to Margaret or I. But if we have none, then we'll be, we recommend that GVOS writes a letter of non-objection for the liquor license renewals as the licensing departments request some sort of input from community councils related to these renewals. So it's very standard that we see these every year.
Okay, anything else on that? Thank you, Kyle. Number 25, agenda item LUC 2309-06. Girdwood Housing Economic Committee request for LUC to discuss infill expo possibilities in Girdwood. And I think Brett is still online.
Yeah, yes, thank you. So this is, let's see, the first action that GHEC as a body put out. And I guess the nexus of this was from the Housing and Economic Committee coming up with ways to reduce the cost of development in the valley. And that led to a resolution to seek LUC time and run it by the community, see if there was any additional thoughts, objections, or support for doing, seeking infill or gravel fill from the valley and places to deposit exfill or stumps. Led to a good discussion in LUC. There are a few people in attendance with some experience with gravel. The process would go at the next LUC meeting to see if we could garner a letter of non-objection to pursuing perhaps a feasibility study that would answer the where, when, and how we would go about making that type of material available. There are a few ideas about that. Glacier Creek being, one of the ideas, several locations having potential, but that would be outlined in a review or a study that would take us to the next step. And this is to inform GBOS that we're looking at this as an option. The way that the meeting schedules work, though, GHEC will have gone through 3 meetings, LUC through 2 meetings. We're not going to have an answer as to community input for our next step until I guess it would be the November meeting for GHEC, just because of scheduling. So if there are any, I did want to kind of point out that there, even in our earlier discussions with the erosion at the bridge at Glacier Creek, that was one of the concerns, flooding being a concern, and several other benefits in addition to reducing the cost of infill, reducing traffic on the highway via trucks specifically. And it's generally to open up the discussion and move ahead from here. So if there are any questions, I'd like to take some.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you for staying online that long. Do we have any questions for Brett? No, all right. Thank you for that. It sounds like the beginning of a super interesting discussion.
Thank you.
All right, item number 26, agenda item LUC 2309-05, Girdwood Housing and Economic Committee request for LUC to discuss use of HLB parcel 6-134 for RV camping. And Crystal, you are very patient. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And just like Brett, I am here to introduce this concept to get a feel for what the community thinks about this idea and kind of lay out some framework for what I think would be necessary to even have this as a discussion moving forward. But basically, the outcome of this agenda item could be a number of different concepts to how this would move forward, and several ideas would be a resolution to encourage HLB to dispose the parcel to Parks and Rec, direct municipal staff to investigate options for Parks and Rec to operate an RV park, HLB to issue an RFP for leasing opportunities for the purpose of RV camping, or it could be also as simple to state preference in the Girdwood area plan for that purpose, for that parcel, if not already identified in the Girdwood area plan map that'll be coming out next month. Some of the reasons why I think this is a good location is because it's along the river waterfront. It'll showcase the water feature of our community, which I feel like Glacier Creek is underutilized as a community asset because the access to it is kind of hard to get to. And another reason why it's in the floodplain, so traditional building, it might not be best suited for. And also proximity to other parks, parks and recreational assets. Something that we would need for sure is public facilities, so a bathroom that would be more of a traditional permanent type facility, and you would put that on the corner where it is outside of the floodplain. And some restrictions or framework for how it might operate would, I think, in my opinion, require a 24-hour caretaker, which could be multiple positions. You might consider 30-day lease terms. That way you can, if you have a problem with a particular user, they would only be allowed to be there up to a 30-day time, but maybe renewal. And I think another requirement would be locally employed in order to have those 30-day lease terms. And but also nightly rate would be an option, and no trash outside, as well as clutter. And for economic benefit, camping is increasingly popular. Visitors need spend money at other local businesses, and this would capture a different market rate and price point from other available options in the community. And I think a goal that I would like to see would be to seek a cost neutral solution if possible. So it would generate revenue by rental fees, and try to keep it as cost neutral with the expenses that are put out on it if it does become a Parks and Rec asset. And so that is it. And kind of, this is a site plan that is proposed that would allow, I think, 40 spaces and turnaround. So you should be able to pull a trailer around in that circle, and just kind of a visual to get the conversation started as to where it would be. And again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Crystal. Just to clarify, this is an idea that is still gestating, right? And so some of the things that you're talking about, like stay limits and whatnot, that would be decided presumably through discussions still yet to happen with GHEC, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, these are just things that I think are necessary for me to even introduce this item.
Perfect. Okay. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Thank you, Crystal, for your work on this. And I remember it was either at GHEC or land use that you presented and talking about it. And in this packet tonight, the second map that might be included, I thought it was also interesting when you were talking about floodplain and where the black square would really be and what was most appropriate. And I don't have a question. I just appreciate the work and think it's really necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Really appreciate it. Sorry, did you have something? Oh, Amanda. Amanda?
I was just, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just wondering about its proximity to the Frisbee golf course. It seems like it would go through some of the holes possibly.
Right. Crystal, you can, I believe you addressed that before, right?
Yep. So in addition to this site plan, we also did a survey where we mapped the locations of the various disc golf baskets out there. I know that they are operating there under a temporary basis, the disc golf courses. So because HLB has not made that a permanent use, and like for that, they haven't been allowed to have like permanent tee-offs at the disc golf. So what I would like to do in conjunction with putting forward this as an actual proposal would be to have another area be designated for just Frisbee golf. And I think that their benefit would be a couple fold. One would be that disc golfers might not interact with other users, such as like if there's a wedding happening in the park, that disc golfers aren't trying to disc golf over top the wedding. So basically have an area that's specified just for them. And I would hope for a course that makes a little bit more sense, because personally I think it's a little confusing. And but basically I think that having the conversation of where it gets moved, I would engage with a disc golf stakeholder group meeting and discuss what they think would be best.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, a couple of questions. First one is the survey is excellent. I didn't say who do we have to thank for doing the survey? Was that pro bono by 49th Star, or was that did somebody
It
else?
was.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Jeremy with 49th Star has done some pro bono work for Girdwood Community Land Trust, which I really appreciate.
That's excellent. So thank you very much for that. And the second thing is there's two issues which are I think are getting perhaps folded together here. One is kind of a visitor tourist RV park, maybe even including camping. I'm not sure whether we'd want to relocate camping, but that's kind of a long-term asset. And then we also have a problem now, and whatever we do with housing, we're going to have a short-term problem of not enough affordable housing and plenty of people living in vehicles without any facilities associated with it. So what I'm hearing when you're talking about longer term lease is something which kind of partially addresses the issue of van life and other people who are either by choice or otherwise living in vehicles in the community. So I think we need to tease those issues apart and discuss them very clearly and not sort of fold them together. It's too early to do that now today, but I think that's something that's going to come up in subsequent discussions. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd appreciate it. Or we can discuss that in more detail next
Sure.
time.
Well, I think I covered this briefly at land use, but in looking at the park and ride right now, we are seeing people living out of their vehicles. And then when we take into account the proposed Tesla charging station, it's going to impact parking for regular business in Town Square. So having a designated spot for them to actually legally camp would be, I think, something that we would want as a community. I think if you look at other communities in the state, they all have camping opportunities, and Seward as an example that makes a lot of money, in excess of $1 million, I believe, on camping. And I don't think we're going to be like that, but I do think it's definitely a revenue generator that should be looked at. And but also, looking at short-term solutions for housing, I think could be in conjunction. But I do agree that it should be a separate discussion point. But anyway, I think that's part of why housing and economic development is bringing this to the table, so it starts to get discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you so much. All right, one last item here. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I make a motion to extend because 27 and 27B might take longer than 5 minutes.
Right.
Motion to go to 10:10.
Second.
Okay. We have no objections to that. Lily will extend the meeting to 10:10. Sorry.
So I don't interrupt the next thing. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. So 27, discuss agenda topics for our MOA and GBOS quarterly meeting scheduled for October 20th.
So we're just starting the process here. Next month, you guys can set this agenda, but here's the items that you discussed last month, our last meeting with the municipal manager and staff, and a lot of might have changed as we go forward, but it's something to work off of and think about. If you have some tonight, you can let us know. If not, you know, you can always email us or bring them to the next meeting and we'll establish the agenda at that point in time.
I'd like to say just briefly that I would like to keep some discussion of HLB on the agenda.
Like the 5-year plan. 1-year plan.
And overall structure of HLB, actually.
I think the industrial park is a really important one to keep updates on where that's at. So they've stated several times that's a priority project for them.
Industrial park.
Okay, is there anything else on this item? Okay, moving on then to 27B. Who didn't write down?
Oh, Brett's got his hand up.
Oh, Brett.
Yeah, back on the last topic, I was just wanted to throw out that under code, there needs to be a representative from Girdwood on the HLB Advisory Commission. And I think they find themselves in a position where there is no Girdwood representative. So I think that should be a topic on your meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. I think you're absolutely right. And that ties into, I want to discuss how we've qualified as a community of interest at a statewide level, but we have less than 1 say out of 7 on what happens land through HLB. So thank you for that. I think that ties in with some other kind of structural institutionalized concerns there. All right, anything else? All right, so.
It was the statement.
Oh, yes. All right, moving back to the housing and homelessness statement from Community Council District 6.
Okay.
Who wants to tackle that?
Sorry, is that in the printed packet? I found it fine, but else.
It's definitely in the online one.
It may not be in the printed packet. It abbreviates the packet because these things get so big.
So thanks.
Yeah. So it's up there.
I'll start on this. So there was a request from the assembly that each district or community council from each district come up with sort of at least elect a representative, and representative came District 6 to discuss housing and homelessness. Particularly, I think it was really mostly in connection with some of the early proposals to have dispersed facilities across the municipality. And what came out of that discussion, at least in part, is this concept of a position statement from a number of community councils, hopefully all community councils within District 6. And I think this is being created again from a perspective of South Anchorage. It doesn't really address the issues here. So we have a number of different ways we can go here. We can either try and influence the position statement, which is going to be proposed generally across District 6, and community councils individually may sign on to or not. We can come up with our own statements. We can ignore it. We can do our own thing separately from any of those. I just don't, at the moment, what I see for District 6 just is not relevant to the situation here. It's really trying to solve a problem which is not a problem we face, and not trying to address the problems that we do face. And I do not think that we're probably going to get a lot of traction in changing it to something that reflects the conditions here.
And this version, to chime in, that we're looking at, I think was edited by one of the representatives of District 6 that's participating, Rachel Reese. And she had lots of comments, but I don't know if they adopted all of her edits.
Haven't got clarity.
We didn't hear back. Because that was before the August 30th meeting. She sent out her edits to it. So it may not look like this, but it is pretty simply stated. And I just reiterated in my notes that they're just asserting that no community council shall recommend, support, or establish a homeless shelter. And they try to define that, but not really. That is within its own boundaries unless formally supported by the community council whose boundary it is located within. Then they add on, or X distance away from the neighboring community council boundary. And then we can't do this unless they say yes and we say yes. And that's what they basically are saying here. And not that that's not productive, but it is something we could, we're in District 6, so we could make our own statement that's pretty different because our neighboring one is turning it off.
I mean, concrete proposal, we're obviously, this is on new business, so we can maybe either decide what to actually do next time, but I think that what makes sense is for us to come up with our own statement, somewhat independently of this. We can try and explain why this does or doesn't matter what we do, but come up with our own statement, which is really what the original request was, for each community council to come up with a statement, not for the whole of District 6 to come up with a single joint statement.
Well, we can also agree by these rules of play without any skin off our nose whatsoever, because, I mean, like, just to be good neighbors, we could basically say, yeah, we agree to those rules of play, and then here's our statement. Because, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I absolutely understand, like, what you're saying, that they don't, doesn't exactly apply to us, but we don't have to make a big stink about that. We could say, okay, yeah, you know, you're right. And then, but I think you're right that we also need to make, like, our, you know, what our concerns are clear also too as well.
Yeah, I think in particular, this goes beyond the issue of homeless shelters. It's about housing, and it does define what low-income housing is. So if you use the HUD definition, low-income housing means a family making $95,000 a year. That would class as low income, which we know is not enough. It's barely enough to rent now, probably not enough to actually rent a full housing unit here, and definitely not enough to purchase. So we have probably all sorts of things that, you know, we could do in the near future, which would address quote income housing through a public process, which this effectively says other, you know, veto can be performed by other community councils. So we're just in a completely different space to both physically and in terms of our housing situation from the other community councils in South Anchorage. So I think we probably need to follow our own path here.
What do you think is the best mechanism for that? Is it for GBOS to hash this out, or do we want to toss this to GHEC or LUC? Probably not LUC.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think ultimately it's going to come from, it's probably going to come from us and LUC if it's in a community council context. So it does have to be part of it.
Okay.
But I think rather than throw out a blank sheet of paper, what we should probably come up with is some kind of either general language or general frame.
Does that mean you and me?
Yeah, I think so.
We collaborate, so it's good. It's good. That's right. I know, that's right. So, all right. Looking forward to it, Mike. Okay, are we good?
Give a hand raise from Lisa Miles.
Lisa.
Yeah, that on item B there, I would not want to be bound by getting South Anchorage's approval in order for us to formally recommend an establishment of these things. That just seems awful. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you.
And we have 2 minutes, so I think we started a task with supervisors' names on it. And I know that it's new business now, but if this is already due, and you have a draft before next meeting, or you submit it, it's something that community councils are asked to do. And my suggestion would be just put your names on it, and it doesn't have to be from us, but you are representatives of the body. And
similar to the roads.
Yeah, and then it says community council's statement. You're not asking for free, they're just saying you're tasked to write a position.
Right. Okay.
I think if it would have more weight if it came from community councils, so we may want to do a very short special meeting to do it before next meeting, but I don't know if we do.
Okay. All right. I believe that's it, and I think we are done. Right? Anything else? Right.
Move to adjourn. Mike seconds.
Yeah, Mike's seeing that his head's
Send him
moving
that.
down. Okay,
Good night, everybody.
thank you, guys.
Good job, Kyle.
Yes, no special.
Wow.
I was worried.